Hello, people of Earth. It's Wednesday night. And you know what that means? It's the time of the week where everybody asks the question, hey, did you see this one? Oh, I did it. Perfect. One of these days.
My alarm went off in the middle of that to tell you to record.
One of these days, I'm not going to start the show by saying I did the thing that I was supposed to.
Nailed it.
Ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between, hello and welcome to another episode of Hey, Did You See This One? I'd like to introduce your host for this week. It's the Caged Man, Kalen.
Thank you. You in the back. Thank you. That's right, everyone. It's Hey, did you see this one? With your host, myself, Kellen, my fellow hosts, Jason and Steven, and our returning guest, Ben. Give it up.
3 episodes in a row. That must be some sort of record.
You got a 3-episode arc.
Yeah, you're fucking welcome. Also,
I mean, there were some rumors and rumors that this was like based on a script for Escape from Earth, which are false. I am sad to report, but
unconfirmed. You can't say false.
No, they were like publicly denied eventually that they that it's not. I mean, according to my research,
what are they talking about? You might be asking yourselves, you viewers at home or at work, or maybe you're on the bus, or maybe you're in the bathroom.
Name all the places that exist.
Yeah, where else could they be, Kalen?
You could be on Mars. You could be on Jupiter.
You could be on freaking
Mars.
Mars.
Be on Mars watching this. How is it? Hopefully you guys got rid of the ghosts. Speaking of, this week's episode that wraps up this month's of John Carpenter Presents January. Again, we are diving deep, into Ghosts of Mars.
Oh, we're going to dive deep for sure. Also, I still don't know why we call it John Carpenter Presents. It should just be called John Carpenter's January.
Yeah, I know. I'm watching the movie titles. I'm like, wait a second, it never says Presents.
He owns it. He owns all of the Ghosts of Mars.
That's a fuck up on me. Also, the whole name for this particular month is John Carpenter Presents January Year 2. It's the whole, it's real wordy.
Earth 2.
I think John Carpenter Presents is the best title you could have picked because he tries to disown all of the movies we've talked about except for Escape from New York. And that people just didn't get what I was trying to do. It was tongue in cheek. Like, well, no, they didn't.
That's what it was.
This movie was like tongue in butt.
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
Listen.
In a bad way.
Some people like that.
Actually, I didn't mind this movie as much as I thought I was going to be honest. But anyway, sorry, Kalen, you're hosting. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's get these tracks already. There's a train in this movie.
There is.
A miniature train.
Oh, we can use that for the
space tracks.
Exactly, space tracks. Yeah, good call. That's the code word for tracks this episode. Space tracks.
Okay.
Excuse me. But if you've seen the episodes before, you know how we do. We like to give a little rundown as to our first viewings, first memories, first feelings involved with the movie of the week. And as before, Ben, if you could grace us with your... Is Steven okay? Is he coughing?
I'm just laughing. I was laughing.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. Mm-hmm. Ben, take it away. Tell us your first time.
We all know that I love Carpenter.
I think we all do.
He seemed to falter a lot later on in the 90s and early 2000s. And this was his last movie for 9 years until The Ward came out in 2010. And I know why. It took me a few viewings from like the first time I saw it. It didn't seem right to me. It didn't seem like a Carpenter film. But it was the first time I saw Jason Statham. Natasha Henstridge, we had all seen Species. Ice Cube,
that's what she's
fantastic.
From, right?
Yeah. Pam Grier again, always want to see Pam Grier on screen. She's great. I love science fiction, but this is more, I think, of a Western. So combining the two together seemed like it would be a perfect movie for me. We'll get into that.
Perfect.
Yeah, and like all of John Carpenter's movies are secretly westerns, like every single fucking one.
Especially lately, he really got into that weird like John Hawkes style of Western filmmaking, looking at Escape from LA, I will say, vampires, and then this. Come on.
Yeah, but even like They Live, it's like the drifter rolls into town on a train, and it's like,
very good point.
It's a lot of like visual iconography and music and just the things from westerns you like, but he's like sneaking them in to be like, he's a cowboy, don't you know? He's a cowboy. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Are you completed on your final thoughts, or your intro, I should say?
That's it for me.
I think that's a great segue into Steven. Why don't you share your thoughts of your first time?
Every single Carpenter is a secret goddamn western. Yeehaw. I saw this movie not in theaters because I was still sort of growing into my position of comfort with movies that present as scary, and this one definitely did. I remember seeing the trailer for this movie for something else I had watched, and I was spooked. I was like, oh god, that movie looks absolutely horrifying, but I was also scared of everything at this point. And but I this was like the first year I went into high school, and I had only just started watching, actual scary movies the summer previous. Like moving in from middle school into high school, I had watched The Shining and The Exorcist and all that stuff, but it like scared the absolute shit out of me. Like I would be shivering in bed, like, oh, am I gonna get possessed by a demon? Is a hotel gonna drive me insane? But The Shining, the hotel.
No, I mean, my bad joke.
I don't understand the joke at all.
I mean, depending on what hotel you stay at, maybe you could go a little crazy.
Oh, okay, I get it. It's like oh no, travel horrors.
The hotel from the 1408 movie.
This is a hotel from hell.
What's that Motel 8 called?
Motel 8.
Yeah.
But I saw it, I think at like a sleepover or something, making new friends in high school, and you rent something random. And this was one of them. And I remember watching it and being like, why was I spooked about this? This is nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, this is all nonsense. And I had seen the majority of these actors in other things before, but I was still in that sort of infancy of being able to recognize people and place a movie to their name and be hyped about them for something else. It was just like, I recognize most of these people and I don't know why. But I remember thinking it was bad, but I was also at, a sleepover. We were all eating chips and someone was playing Mario Kart on another TV or a Mario Party, and you'd hop in and just this movie was just playing on the side. And I remember thinking like, man, oh man, a lot of people get their heads cut off in this movie. And like, that's like my main impression of the movie the first time I watched it. And I hadn't seen it again until yesterday. And I think it was because it was so panned by even like the most diehard Carpenter fans as just one of his absolute worst movies. And I think most people put it at the very bottom of the list. Like it's like this, and then I don't know what else is Escape from LA probably. Like it's not far from the bottom. LA, I mean, is not far from the bottom, but most people would put this one at the very bottom. But it has its defenders as well, which is kind of interesting. And I was expecting it to be the worst pile of shit I'd ever watched. And then, I kind of let my guard down. And as I just saw like the titles come up, like, and then it's like, this whole planet is a matriarch. I was like, what? This planet's run by ladies? Cool.
Yeah, let's never mention that again in the film.
Yeah, I know, right? I think it was just to explain why the women are so like badass. Like all the women are just like blowing people away.
Position of authority.
Yeah, like shit. None of them are weak. They're the bosses, and it's like, okay, that's interesting, but like maybe go more into it. Like have them be like, we don't take orders from men. Like have them be like the toxic masculinity, but in the form of a female. It'd be kind of interesting.
We're a couple of the only.
Anyway, yeah, I'll pass it on to Jason. Jason's mumbling into his mic.
We're a couple of the only breeders on this planet. I'm ignoring your
Which
advance.
woman was that?
I think
Someone
trying
had
to
British
Statham.
accents.
That was
Jason
Statham.
Statham. I'm ignoring your advances for 75% of the movie. Well, why don't we give it a little go? Okay. Like that, we'll get into it. But it doesn't really work when I have to stop and explain what I was doing. It just probably sounded like mumbling. My first time watching this movie was today. I like, much like Steve was one of those people that when movies would come out, I would see a trailer and be horrified in a way that's like, I'll never be able to watch that. It's too spoopy and scary. But what this actually ultimately is Sonya Blade goes to the Doom world. And
It's not Sonya Blade.
I know. It's
Okay.
He's smashing video games together.
Got it.
The character is I was like, she should have played Sonya Blade. She's a little bit more, I could take her a little bit more seriously than the woman who played Sonya Blade in the Mortal Kombat movie. I know that she would have been younger, but Natasha Henstridge, I think she was replaced by January Jones in Hollywood. They have very similar faces, very similar wooden acting abilities, and those are the things I was thinking about while watching this this one act of plot and 2 acts of poorly choreographed fighting to generic metal. But ironically, that's what I love about it, baby. Put this on the list of movies that are dumb, but I like them with Event Horizon, because this is also very similar to Event Horizon in my opinion.
One of the most disappointing aspects about the movie is that John Carpenter composed all of the music for this, but it was performed by, I think, Anthrax, which is just fucking bullshit.
Was it really
Anthrax? It would have been so much better if it was just John Carpenter like on a synthesizer than the generic rock music that we got.
I actually made a note saying, is this the worst music in a John Carpenter film ever?
Listen,
I think it might be.
I liked it because of how on the nose it was for like the choreography in these fight scenes were so bad. Like Ice Cube doesn't
it was
know how
like
to
there was
fucking
no
throw a
stunt.
punch.
It was like there was no stunt coordinator on
They were like,
screen.
just
It was like
go.
Yeah, they're like, okay, this guy's gonna swipe at you, you punch him, and then this guy's gonna run at you, and you flip him. Okay, go. And then like they just did it on take one, you know.
But Steve, I'm just gonna say,
Sorry.
you've said in the past that John Carpenter's not great at shooting fights.
Well,
So-
he's not great at it though as well. Like he when he has to, like okay, Big Trouble for example, like all the stuff in that fight scene in the alley at the beginning of that movie is like spectacular compared to
the
this
one-on-one
movie,
fist fight.
People get when all those 2 gangs, it's like a funeral, and then like they
yeah.
accidentally pull in, and then like 2 gangs go, and like people are getting thrown through windows and like punching each other quickly, and it's not the most amazing choreographed fight scene you've ever seen, but compared to this movie, it is the best. Oh my god, it's frustrating to watch because there's all these characters are like semi-interesting, but then you see them in a fight and you're like, they would have died like so quickly.
Question for you, all of you. Do you all agree that John Carpenter is better as a minimalist director?
Yes.
Yeah, he should
Absolutely.
not be tackling big things like this.
I mean, I agree insofar as his 80s offerings are much better. Like The Thing is the most minimalist thing, excuse my pun,
well done,
ever, but he's got to mix genres for me to enjoy it, and I think that's why I like this dumb pile of nonsense as much as I do, because he mixes so many things together. But it's too big. It's too big. Well, also, I just want to point out that Kalen didn't do his...
No, finish your
okay.
thing. I'll hop in.
Cool.
No, you take the stage.
No. There's lots of stage. I'll quickly get it out of the way. My first, the poster.
Yes, we see it.
I do recall seeing the poster. I don't know why I never had an urge to actually check out the movie. So Sunday was my first time.
Looking poster.
Well, I mean, it kind of like grabs you, kind of. But Sunday was my first viewing. Ben, I believe you asked me to go into it picturing Ice Cube as Snake, and there's definitely some lines where I was like, oh, like Snake wouldn't say that, but if he did, that'd be hilarious. While watching it, though, I kind of got a feeling that so Natasha's character, I believe Michelle, was kind of playing the Snake character, and then Ice Cube was kind of playing like the kid of the president character, kind of, is how I felt about it.
I felt like they were all playing Snake. Like they were all little bits of Snake's personality split up.
I think you're 100% correct. Watching it recently, like I've watched it a couple of times today. Statham as Jericho.
Yeah.
He has Snake Plissken lines left and right. He's like the pervy Plissken.
Yeah.
Pervy Plissken, badass Plissken, lady Plissken, Pam Grier Plissken.
Just shave your head, god damn it,
The name's
Plissken.
Jericho.
Yeah.
Like, oh, come
Call
on,
me
guys.
Jericho. Come on now.
Was
Yeah,
this
come on,
before
Adventure.
Snap?
We're the only two breeders of here.
Well, I was thinking that this is the last time I might get a little sweet cheeks with them sweet cheeks, if you know what I'm saying.
And she's like, okay, just bad writing. I feel like
Fine.
all the bad writing in this is from his writing partner, and the normal the normal ass writing in this movie is John Carpenter just like, stop it, I'm working here, like I'm writing a John Carpenter script, and this other guy's like, what if Jason Statham is a pervert? And what if she likes it?
You know, he comes in and he says, wiggle, 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 or something. Like that.
Speaking of what if, I hate this movie as John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of
you're-
good faith that you give this movie that you wouldn't otherwise if it was not directed by him.
Yeah.
Well, are you all familiar with Alan Smithy?
No.
Go on.
It's a name given when a director wants their name removed from the film, but it has to be released with a director's name attached. So
Right, it's like a
that
fake
is
name, yeah.
exactly, it's Alan Smithy. Look up Alan Smithy on IMDb and you'll see the worst movies ever made.
Sweet.
But
if
it's
you
like-
put
It's like
Alan
several different-
Smithy's Ghost of Mars, this movie's a fucking banger.
Oh, I see.
Who the hell made this? This is amazing. It's like Escape
Exactly.
from Earth. I also wanted to point out, Kaylin, as you were saying, like that, you know, all these a couple of these characters are Snake-esque. LL Cool J is literally wearing the same clothes that Snake wears in Escape from LA, except his camo pants are red camo instead of blue camo.
You know, ladies love Cool J.
Like, ooh, camo. Ooh, red
Sorry,
camo.
did I say LL Cool J? Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm mixing up Deep Blue Sea in my brain.
I posit that the fad of kids wearing different colors of camo is from this movie, because around this time, if you'll remember, in 2001, people were wearing the like yellow camo, the blue camo.
Yeah,
the
but if
red.
you're on Mars, you're gonna be wearing red camo.
You gotta wear
That's how you blend into the red earth of Mars.
I remember this movie.
The rusty, nasty dirt of Mars.
I was 16 when this movie came out, and I remember it being popular. Like, I remember it being a dumb movie that like people my age liked during high school.
I share Ben's look of confusion.
But
Yeah,
I think it's
I'm
super
because
confused.
maybe it's just my group of friends. We all loved Ice Cube.
That makes more sense if it's an isolated group of people
Yeah.
all
That's
like
true. Okay.
chest bumping
Well,
about a movie.
I mean,
Yeah.
in Halifax too, people just loved Ice Cube. In the groups that I ran with, we were a bunch of punks. We listened to punk rock and Dr. Dre 2001 and that double disc Ice Cube album that came out in like 2002.
Yeah.
And I
Where
remember,
was the John Carpenter Ice Cube collaboration? Is what I want to know.
I want more.
Well, John Carpenter actually met tons of people at shows, like music shows. Like he went to so many concerts and he would meet people back. That's how Alice Cooper is in The Prince of Darkness. He just met him. No, he met him at WrestleMania, actually. That's how they met.
That's real.
He goes to like so many events and meets celebrities and he's like, you know, I got this role that maybe will be good for you. Like I can imagine that that's how Ice Cube got this role, was that he probably just met him at a show.
But imagine if they did the sound, like the instrumental soundtrack together, like
That
maybe
would've
kind of
been
Western
pretty cool.
rock with some kind of like rap a little bit, maybe.
But
I would
is
love to hear that.
Imagine
Is
if
Ice Cube a producer, or did he just
He-
like,
No, I
don't
he
think
just
he
do
is,
vocal
but-
Well,
things? Yeah.
he probably had a hand in producing his own like beats on his albums, but I'm saying like if Ice Cube and whoever his producer is worked with John Carpenter and they made an album where Ice Cube did rap over like John Carpenter
Right,
made beats.
like P. Diddy and the Godzilla soundtrack.
Well, that's a little different. That's a little that's them just ripping off Kashmir.
That's also just like Sean Combs getting a massive paycheck for making a song to
and all you do,
popularize a piece of shit movie.
Come with me over the hook from Kashmir by Led Zeppelin. So it's not even.
They didn't really change. Yeah, I don't think.
Oh yeah, it's still that's not like a new thing. That happens all the goddamn time in music, right?
It's true, and it's weird too because P. Diddy sort of brought it over from like rappers using it as just like samples to pulling the whole sample from already established pop songs, and then after P. Diddy started doing it in like the mid '90s, fucking now it's just so prevalent across. Like there's no like new music. I know that right now, Eiffel 65's "Blue" is used in like a huge song. I don't know, Ben, if you watched Raw 30 on Monday.
No, I heard about.
But they used that song all night. And I'm like,
yeah, you just hear like, now listen up and you'll hear a tale.
No, forget all the good parts.
Man. Yeah.
And the singer is just singing. She says something like, "I'm having the best freaking time of my life," and it's not great. But you know, those hooks are what people get you interested. Much like John Carpenter movies have hooks. But
this movie is basically like him remixing his own movies, right? Like
that's where I was going.
He basically had like a little grab bag of
Yeah.
everything people liked from all his other movies, and he shook it up in a bottle and was like, "Send it to Mars."
You like Orange Skies? You like clever quips by
well, it's
badass?
like he's got his Pliskin-esque characters. He's got his assault on precinct 13, escape, like in a jail situation with people trying to get into murder.
Horror shit.
Yeah,
we've got two more.
He has the camera following them around like the Shape from Halloween, basically like doing the perspective camera stuff like all over the goddamn place in this movie. Mm-hmm. They've got the distrust when she gets possessed and they dump her ass out, which is like the thing.
All over
it's like a
movie.
2-second version of the thing where they'd mistrust her for like just her to trip out and see the fish aliens or whatever.
One person's like, I haven't heard any of them speak English, so clearly she's not possessed.
Yeah.
Right. You've got an ancient evil that's been locked away and is gaining power, like Big Trouble in Little China. You've got, I don't know. There's probably a bunch more.
I say there are 4 main movies that he just took from to create this
for sure,
mess. And I will say you were right on the first 2. I would say Escape from New York and Assault on Precinct 13, cops and criminals working together. In a siege situation.
I'm a cop. You're a criminal. How will this ever work?
I will also say The Fog, for sure.
The Fog, yeah.
Okay,
and Prince of Darkness with Natasha Henstridge's like weird dream vision of what's going on.
Yeah,
with,
and also like an
history of
ancient
Mars.
evil being buried beneath Earth and possessing people and getting them to do with its will and shit. Yeah.
Now, if only this movie had Alice Cooper, it would be great.
Yeah, imagine Alice Cooper played that main alien.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that would be amazing.
Perfect.
I would love that.
I would love that too. I think that would elevate this movie just enough to make it, well, I'll tell you what my rating is at the end.
I have a question for you guys. Do you think that they actually were speaking like a scripted language, like the monster alien possessed people, or they just were like, just make a bunch of fucking noises? Because it just sounds like they're going.
It does sound like a bunch of noises.
Did they get Did they get the linguist that made that turned the language of Elven in fucking Lord of the Rings?
The guy who made Dothraki and HBO's
or
Game
did they
of
go
Thrones.
Try to do it not racist sounding?
Yeah, just try and make fish sounds.
I think it was more of we have limited time and no money. Action.
Yeah, we spent all the money on the group of people storming the base from far
Do you know
away.
how much this little train cost?
Yeah.
Get on it.
It costs a lot. It cost the same amount of money we paid Ice Cube, and that was a lot.
Yeah, he was big money in 2001. He's just started acting. He's probably like, I'm gonna act now.
I mean, he'd been acting for a little while, and I gotta say, if you utilize him well in anything, you can get an amazing performance out of him. But he's also one of those actors that like he'll come in with modifications to the script and stuff, and like write his own things, like his own little monologues.
Lots of motherfuckers.
And if you let him go, like he is like very convincing and good. And in this movie, it just felt like he was like, okay, I'm in a John Carpenter movie. I need to like take everything very
Are you saying
earnestly and seriously and just
you-
be like, I am a serious character.
Are you saying that
Yeah.
I should watch Are We There Yet too?
Yeah, that in that movie utilized very well.
The jump streets for he was pretty funny.
Yeah, he's good.
Extreme.
Listen, I'm
funny.
not saying funny. I'm saying good. Funny and good are not the same fucking thing.
Yeah, but you have to be good to be funny in a lot of cases.
I'm saying that he can be a very compelling actor with compelling performances that will make the movie better.
Kayla,
I'm not saying
I'm
he
with
made me
you.
laugh a couple times
Yeah.
in the movie because he's mad.
We jump street,
Yeah.
jump in your ass.
Did anyone see or read his reactions to the film, the
No.
finalized film?
That
No,
would be
what do you got?
interesting to hear.
You got some listed there?
He was happy to be part of a John Carpenter film, and then he's like, yeah, in the end, the budget wasn't there for what we tried to pull off, and yeah, and just abandoned it.
He's like,
And that was
this
it.
interview's over. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's unfortunate though, because like, again, you know, we talked last week a little bit about like Pam Grier and stuff, and like,
Yeah.
she once again is like weirdly desexualized in like a major way. Where like I was saying last week, like Pam Grier is maybe one of the most beautiful people that's ever existed on the planet Earth.
oh totally.
He puts her into Escape from LA and makes her into a trans person that we're meant to kind of laugh at throughout it. And I went into it a little bit and I was like, but it's not the worst representation of trans people, and she's presenting as a woman, but like the lower pitched voice is just silly and dumb. And then in this movie they make her into like a lesbian, like
Which
even
is
this
Yeah, it was
the
weird.
woman's like, I'm as straight as they come or whatever, and you're like, fuck off. Like if this movie is really taking place in the future, have you seen any Gen Zers? They're all looking at each other's butts.
I missed the bit that was like it's a matriarchy, and I was like, when he was like, we're the only two breeders left, I was like, oh, is this like a weird thing where they're making a commentary about how everybody's gay in the future? Because that's weird. But the matriarchy thing, I guess, is also kind of weird.
But it's also like they're making it a thing where like, again, the Pam Grier had come off of Jackie Brown, and like she was a leading actor, and it could have meant like so much for her as an actor, and she could be still doing amazing
just to
shit
put her
this
head
day,
on
but
she just disappears
like,
and they put her head on a pike.
Well, like the biggest thing
weird.
that I've seen her in the last like 10 years is one of the radio personalities on Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yeah.
Like that was like the biggest thing I'd seen her in a long time.
Yeah,
And-
but those radio stations are hilarious.
And they're big. That's a big get for any actor, especially if you're like not washed up, but like
This is frustrating.
why?
I think we can all agree that Carpenter did her wrong again.
Yes,
She was
that's
underutilized,
what
yeah.
I'm saying, is that she's underutilized. She dies so quickly, which is
Wait,
like
hold-
super annoying.
Hold on. Why is that frustrating?
I'm trying to make a point that she's an amazing actor, and like the fact that saying it's a huge get for somebody to be a voice on a Grand Theft Auto 5 radio station
think
is not
it
the same
is.
thing. I don't think it's the same thing as being the star of Jackie Brown.
No,
It's definitely not
Jackie
the same
Brown's
thing as being the star
Agreed.
of Jackie Brown.
you're right. But the thing about the GTA radio station specifically that I think is a big get is because you live in that game that will be played by literally millions and millions of people forever.
If you
Yeah,
like
I'm
that
not saying I am
station.
not saying that it's a bad. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to have.
No,
what
but
I'm
I feel like
saying
you
is
were
that
discrediting what I was saying about that being a pretty big.
okay. Well,
deal.
what I would say is that like imagine Tilda Swinton was doing a Grand Theft Auto 5 radio station. Like I don't think that would be what she
That'd
would be
probably
doing.
be
Right?
hilarious.
It would probably be hilarious, but she doesn't. She wouldn't be
I
doing
get
that
it.
because she has all these creative projects that she's going to be able to do and like utilize. And whereas Pam Grier getting that, it's a big get for somebody who is a voice actor. But Pam Grier has like an illustrious career that was getting bigger and better. And then this movie brought her back to like the same like shitty blaxploitation movies that she was making in the 70s.
Do we
and
know
stuff, right?
what
Like,
happened?
exactly.
Like, do you know why her? Like, she peaked.
Her path, yeah.
I think that Tarantino utilized her in a way that nobody else
Like, could.
knew how to
Okay.
and could, and it's just unfortunate, I guess is what I'm saying, and it happens a lot to like POC actors, and it's sad because like I was excited when I was like I know she's in it. I haven't seen it in a long time, and I didn't realize she was just gonna show up and be like hit on the hot blonde and then be like a meat bag, basically like a Marcus Phoenix style character, and then die off screen everybody else is getting their little like off moments away from the main character who is basically telling the story to the council, right? Like, but she's like,
Also,
well,
can
that's
we
what they
trust
said.
the narrator? Is this like one of those, you know?
That's what I was wondering too. It's she's
No,
all
you
fucked
can't,
throughout
but
the movie, and I wonder
I
if
don't
that
think-
was part of it.
I don't think this movie's smart enough to do that.
No, yeah, and like,
Or it was
there's
just
even
it's
little
just
things
happening
where-
in John Carpenter's head. Like he's in his head, that's what's happening, but it's not written like that, and nobody else knows. Nobody else
well,
knows.
that brings me to like the weird annoying thing of the cross dissolves. Like,
Oh my
my
god.
God.
it's so
many
fucking
swipes.
insane.
Can can I talk about the worst one in the whole movie?
Yes, you can.
She says, she's like, I gotta go get something, and then there's a swipe, and then she just leaves the room and comes back moments later.
Yeah.
I've never
I would
seen
say the
anything
worst
like-
one
I've
is when
never seen
she's
anything like that before.
she sees the guy kill himself in the thing, and then she goes around to the back and tries to get it open, and then Jason Statham shows up, and then she's like, I don't know, I was looking and it was like he was trying to say something, and then it cross dissolves to like 2 seconds before, where she's like, it's like the same shot of her looking into the fucking car and him killing himself again. I'm like,
Well-
we saw this 2 seconds ago.
There's
there's
a whole thread that
like
I want to go down to.
a flashback within a flashback within a flashback that
And
has
it's a
no
story
resolution.
being
Man,
told.
this is
Like
better.
the whole movie is a flashback of her telling the story of
Exactly.
what happened.
Yeah.
It's so all
That's
over the
funny.
place. Late, like in the third, right before they get into like just the fighting, the movie kind of keeps forgetting like where they are in the story. So we get like a flashback to Natasha. What specifically when Natasha Henstridge is telling the story about how Jason Statham meets those Mars dudes. Then those Mars dudes tell a story about how they saw the ghouls. I
Yeah.
kept referring to them as ghouls because what the fuck
That's
else
fine.
are they? They're ghouls. Sees the
ghoulish.
ghouls, and then that catches up to Jason Statham meeting them, which then goes
Yeah.
to present
Well, okay,
in the
so
story.
that's the gambit that this movie is kind of trying to make, right? Is it's like she's having a tribunal, she's giving her sort of like her
Testimony.
debrief of what happened at the mining colony or wherever the fuck they are, and like it's supposed to be sort of a disjunct storytelling situation, a la like a Tarantino or whatever, because she's telling the
Right.
story to these people, so they're able to go back and do things like that in a weird, out of sync story, because a person wouldn't be able to tell the story in a succinct way. So they're
Right.
like, it's like they're trying to remind you that she's telling the story, and I think that's why the cross dissolves are there, where it's like it's meant to feel like ethereal and dreamlike because it's a person telling you the story, and things would get muddy together, but at the same time, it's like super cheesy bad, and like it reminds you of a really old. You would think that like cross dissolves had like just been invented or some
Yeah.
shit. Like fucking Carpenter is like, oh man,
Cross dissolve,
you mean
cross
I
dissolve."
can have 2 images overlay on top of each other for a couple seconds? This is amazing.
No one's seen this in Star Wars.
I literally said out loud while I was watching. I'm like at my desk watching this movie. I say out loud, this shit's been going on since the 70s.
Yeah,
And
man,
I couldn't-
rewatched.
I couldn't believe it. They should have done. They should have thrown a star wipe in there just for the fucking.
Well, they have almost a star wipe where it wipes from one corner to the
Yeah,
other. Like
they
a
do
Star
that
Wars
multiple
style, like,
times.
doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
I mean, the literal star. That's
like the star shows up. Yeah, like
like the default wipes from like Photoshop.
video
or,
toaster and shit.
Fantastic starburst.
Yeah. So I wanted to throw in, like, I rewatched Doctor Sleep yesterday, and it's a sequel to The Shining, so they're trying to match sort of Kubrick style of certain transitions and things, and they do a lot of cross dissolves in this movie as well, but they do it in an appropriate way where like it slowly fades from one image to the other, where there'll be like car headlights that like look like they're highlighting the person who's walking towards the camera, and like it's artistry, right? Whereas this is just like they cross dissolve from this blonde woman walking into a cell with Ice Cube and then it like cross dissolves for some fucking reason back and forth between them. Like it looks like a shitty music video.
Like I said, literally, she's like,
Yeah.
I gotta go get something, and she walks out of the room. It cross dissolves, and she comes back
I think we can all agree the cross dissolves make us want to fucking smash our heads on the iron bars of the Mars prison cell.
Gouge my eyes out.
I don't think that's the only thing that makes us want to do that.
It's one of them.
That storytelling throughout the movie that's just like all over the place. I almost feel like when they were making the movie, they were like, this is gonna blow people's minds. They're not gonna know what's going on in sort of like a positive way. But you watch the movie and you're like, I'm following it. It's not that hard to follow, but if you're trying to be smart with this, you're not. This would confuse an idiot. This would confuse a dumb person. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think that
for idiots.
I don't know if it would.
This movie's for dumb people.
I mean, I got a little confused. I'll admit.
This movie is mass media consumption movie, right? It's a big action flick. Probably did okay in theaters. That's how
it had a really big budget.
It was the intention.
It was.
I think it was the intention.
And John Carpenter's name was big enough that people would go see it based on just his name alone.
Was this the biggest budget he ever had?
I don't know for sure.
Don't believe.
I feel like Escape from L.A. was probably his zenith.
Well, Escape from LA is also the reason that we get some really nice miniatures and matte paintings in this movie, is because he was so disappointed with how LA turned out that he's like, I want to go back and I want to make minis and do all that kind of stuff.
I've got the budget and the box office for you here. Who wants to guess about this budget?
I think the budget was 125 million and it made 98 million.
Okay.
I'm gonna say 85 million for the budget. Mm-hmm. And it probably made 45 to 50-ish.
Okay.
$1, Bob.
For both? They spent $1, they made $1. They broke even, baby.
You're pretty close. The budget, 28 million.
Oh, okay. That's way off.
The box office, half of that.
Okay.
What was that, 14?
So
14 million. It was a complete box office bomb.
That's surprising.
Yeah. That's surprising?
I mean, it kind of looks like a sci-fi channel movie.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
At best.
That's what I had a lot of moments where I was like, are they serious?
I'm also used to like movies having like a $500 million budget now, right?
Well, and that's where we are today. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
That's why I thought that this piece of shit was 125 million in 2001
and 2001. But like it was a different time. It was pre a horrible tragic event. So people were, they felt a little more safe. We could have a movie on Mars and not have to worry too hard about that budget.
Do you posit that Ghosts of Mars caused 9/11?
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Al-Qaeda saw this movie
the prequel and Total Recall.
Al-Qaeda saw this movie and was like, that's it.
Is this movie the prequel to Total Recall? Is that what you asked?
That's gold. I love that.
Maybe all the zombies become mutants eventually, like the red mist that they let out of the secret tomb that wasn't made by man, as posited by the stripper robot from Blade Runner. I forget her name, but she's like the analyst or like the chemical engineer. I'm not sure what her actual title is, but she's the one. Or whatever. Whitlock. She's the one that like crashes in the air balloon, which is also probably the coolest fucking part of the whole movie.
It is, and that's at the point of the movie when I was like, none of this is cohesive or makes any sense. I want to know so much more about this air balloon. I want to know so much more about what she does in this world, that she's driving an air balloon around Mars. But nope, the air balloon explodes. It just.
I mean, my assumption.
My
assumption is that she fled from where she unlocked the mist and left everybody behind to die, and didn't fully tell them up front like what happened until later. And she was fleeing the mist, and then the mist got to where she was going before she got there, and then she fell and was locked in the cell or whatever. Or she demanded to be locked in the cell, right? Because she knew it was coming. Also, weather balloons. They generally don't have people on them.
Or explode.
Specifics are really strange in this film because they announced that the planet's 84% terraformed. Yeah. But there's no vegetation.
No.
They can't really breathe.
It's on the other side of Mars.
They have somewhat breathable air that gives you a migraine. It's like Avatar air rules.
How does that breather thing work? It like Some sort
An
of thing that
avatar?
you breathe, and then when you breathe in the Mars atmosphere, it converts it inside you or something?
No, there's just not enough oxygen for you to like. It's like being
No,
on
but
top
it's not
of a
like they're
mountain.
continuously doing it. They just take a shot of it every once in a
Oh,
while.
you're
and
talking
then
about the drug thing?
the whatever their breather.
No, they have that inhaler on their
Yeah, the
lapel
inhaler. Yeah, make sure you go
every now and then.
It's probably just a bit of oxygen, because like you don't. The air is very thin.
There's
or
probably
whatever, right?
pockets. There's probably pockets where there's not breathable air, but they made a very good point of being like, you can breathe the air here, so we don't have to wear ridiculous movie masks.
Instead,
but
we'll
you
wear
might get
these
a headache.
ridiculous safety glasses.
Yeah, put
Yeah,
your goggles
Save
on.
$1 million.
that we bought at Home Hardware
Yeah, they're like the shitty ones you can get at Home Hardware for like 99
for wood.
cents.
So if a wood chip goes awry,
It's pierce your iris. Oh god, this movie.
Look, I want to tell you something that I did like about this movie. I liked the very brief scene where she has a little like locket that is like a little. You take a little pill called Clear, and you trip out for like a couple hours.
Hey, Jason.
But doesn't get
Hey,
you.
Jason. Hey, Jason.
I think he's stopping talking so that you can say something.
No, I want him to respond. Hey, Jason.
Hey, what?
Have you ever looked at a pendant?
No.
Have you ever looked at a pendant high?
On Clear, you
Oh,
whiffed it.
okay.
You
I was
whiffed it.
waiting for that.
I didn't know where it was going.
The other part that I wanted to mention about that scene is she has like a trip out. She has a little trip out, and she's looking at the pendant like Kaylin was alluding to. She sees it like morph.
Referencing like another 100-year-old movie.
But
Hey, Half Baked was great.
the thing about it is they're making a sequel. The thing about it is the CGI
No
in
way.
that moment. Yep. So it's like filming now. The CGI in that moment.
Half the cast from the original is canceled.
Yeah,
How are they gonna
exactly.
do that?
I don't even really care.
Is Netflix funding it?
I don't care. Hold on a second. The little bit of CGI in that moment was actually really, really, really good. However, the other time we see legitimate, fully rendered CGI is
The fish
just
monsters.
the fish monsters, and it's so bad.
It looks like one of those real-time strategy games from a PC from 1997.
Looks
where,
like a StarCraft
like the opening
cutscene.
sequence where it's like they haven't quite figured out how to get the arms to move properly without it looking like you're a hand puppet. Oh god,
and
yeah.
That moment probably, but those two CGI moments were probably a quarter of the budget, and then they spent the rest of the money on those dumb, long, chaotic action scenes and fake blood. There's one particular scene that looked expensive.
There were a couple of good action moments. Like there was a good moment where it's Ice Cube and what the fuck's her name? Species. I can't remember her name.
Natasha,
Henstridge.
Melissa?
Natasha? I think it's Michelle in the thing.
Michelle. I didn't write down her name, so I don't know.
So it's what's his name? Demolish. No, his name in the movie.
Desolation Williams.
Desolation.
Yeah, Desolation.
So dumb.
John Desolation Williams.
I think Demolisher would be better than Desolation. But also, if your name is Desolation, or people call you that, nickname Dez.
Yep.
Dez is a cool name. Call him Dez, man. That's a sick name. But anyway, it's the two of them, and the doors get blown down, and they're just kind of. She has a shotgun, and he's just hucking grenades, and they're like backing up slowly, and like the way the camera is kind of pulling back, and they're rushing the camera. I'm like, this is a good shot, a well thought out action shot that probably took a couple takes, and I like it. Yeah. I just hate the wide angles of them running through the shitty Mars town they built in a warehouse or whatever. And like just shooting squibs in all directions.
The shot that I wanted to talk about in that same vein was, and I think was very expensive because the sheer amount of people that were involved, was when they're like waiting, they're like in a doorway and they're looking down, they're looking like through a site, and this horde comes and is just like attacking a building, and they're far away, so it looks good because they're far away. But the sheer amount of people that were in that shot, it made it look very expensive, and I just keep thinking about it. And
well, I just okay. If anybody has listened to episodes of the BS Bargain Bin, one of my biggest pet peeves is people throwing grenades and them exploding into a massive ball of fire.
Yeah,
I hate it
It's like
because
it's a concussion shot, right? Like it's not an explosion, right?
it's shrapnel. There's no fireball or anything like that. So as soon as I saw these grenades,
TNT
that's what I thought was going to
explodes.
happen.
Dynamite
I can
explodes.
forgive that kind of shit
Exactly.
because like
But
in order to successfully have that be visually interesting, they
Yes.
have to have some sort of crazy shock wave and like have so much shrapnel actually flying out of it. Otherwise,
agreed.
it's like just make a fireball, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the easy way, right?
And I was ready to criticize this film because of it, but I also realized what movie I was watching.
Yeah.
So I was ready to accept it, and I'm like, "This is great."
And then you saw
And-
that guy get his arm cut off, and you're like,
No,
oh.
no.
You're like,
Then
oh,
I
this is
saw
great.
A guy get shot with a shotgun straight on and fly off to the side.
Yeah.
And I'm
The guy
like,
gets his arm cut
Listen,
off.
that
and
happens
just
in,
keeps going.
that happens. That
it makes
happens in
no
Django
sense
Unchained
at
as
all.
well. Remember in Django when he shoots that woman and she flies into the room in the wrong
Yeah.
direction? And it's
It's just-
hilarious.
Even
the biggest
there is
movies
no
do that
direction.
shit.
No
No.
direction here. It's like you get injured, and they're like, "I guess I'm going that way."
I mean, I know I've mentioned the decapitations a few times already, but they always look ridiculous, right? Like it's like
I think they
the
look
the
fun.
head, it hits the head, and then
I
the
like
head
them.
falls off, and like the body just drops. It's funny, it's comical. But my one gripe is like there was either one too many decapitations or one too little. I'm
Or,
like,
like,
it was
more
funny here, but it wasn't funny there.
decapitations.
But one more might have been funny again.
I think
You
there
know,
was
they-
a really. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say if they made one or two more, it probably would have come back to being hilarious for me
Yeah.
because they did so many that it was funny, and then the one extra they did, I was like, all right, he's gonna get his head cut off probably, right? And they did, and I was like, ugh. But if they had done one more, I would have been like, I was waiting for that.
The smart move with the decapitations is that they happen so fast that you don't get like the head slide off and the body slowly fall.
Oh
The
yeah,
head-
it's just
the head
like
comes off and it's
Yeah.
out. You can't focus on any potential error with special effects. It just happens and it looks fine.
There was
and nobody ever talks about it.
There was one
Yeah.
where the girl, the other girl in their crew, who's like in a whole bunch of shit.
Clea DuVall.
DuVall.
Yep.
Her death was kind of unceremonious, but that decapitation was pretty good because
She dodged two of them.
there was so much visual. Yeah, they don't because the fucking ghouls have those like discs that they suddenly just have.
You know what? I shouldn't have said that they look bad. They're good. Like they're fun. Like every decapitation, I was like, this is good.
I
Okay,
like,
this.
but what I'm saying is I like that specifically because there was so much visual, like static to kind of muddle
There was
it.
a lot going on.
But
yeah.
you see her head perfect. Like it looks like what they did was they cut the scene like horizontally and had her in a black suit just fall over and have the top
Yeah.
part of her body still just like
Yeah.
decapitated by the shot. And
Yeah,
it looked
I can see
fine.
that.
It's an old school editing trick. It's an old school movie trick to do things like that. And I'm worried that John Carpenter, they filmed like a few shots for this movie early on, and he was like, "Uh-oh," and
Yeah.
then he stopped directing.
I
Then
think
he
I
was
forgot
just,
how to
Yeah.
frame a
just
frame.
put this thing together. I'm okay. We'll get him next time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he does have like an old school style of framing a scene, right? Like
Yeah,
the
he
cinematography is deliberate and it's consistent through the majority of his career. And a movie like this does not really facilitate his cinematography style. And I don't know if he had fights with his cinematographer in this movie or if he's been using, because he uses different cinematographers all the time, but he not all the time, but he has used a plethora of different cinematographers throughout his career. But his movies generally have a consistency to them.
He's got a
Yeah.
visual signature for sure.
Yeah, and this movie
It's in
adheres
there.
to that, but it does not
Yeah.
necessarily feel right in a movie like this.
It
you know,
definitely
like-
has moments where people are sneaking around like this, and it's showing them. It's like a Resident Evil game where it's just showing them from a bunch of different shots.
Yeah.
Which he
Actually,
definitely does
that's a
all
good
the
point.
time.
Resident Evil, the movie, the Paul W.S. Anderson movie that came out around the same time as this.
I meant the game.
is-
How that's
I know, but it took my brain there. I think that this movie, if directed or at least shot in the style of that first Resident Evil
Yeah.
movie, would probably feel more appropriate and it probably wouldn't feel
Event
as
Horizon
janky
is
and
to me
shitty.
it's to me an unofficial John Carpenter movie because it's he just fucking jacked John Carpenter style for that.
Paul W.S. Anderson is clearly like a John Carpenter like aficionado, and he probably is like, I want it to look like every John Carpenter movie that was ever made.
Event Horizon, to me, like I said, is an unofficial John Carpenter movie because there's a lot of all the same tropes that John Carpenter uses, the same kind of horror, the same kind of genre bending, the same kind of like hyper attention to weird detail.
I would also like to bring up the point that Steve made about the Resident Evil film, because it seems like both here Carpenter and there Anderson both got models with limited acting experience and tried to push them as the star of an action film or action horror film. And I mean, I
think one more successfully than the other. I think
they made more movies with one. I don't know if
he also married her.
Exactly.
They're married. But I think that Mila Jovovich.
Yeah.
I think she's not necessarily in that movie, but I think that she has proved herself a couple of times in her career as being a fairly decent actor. Not an amazing actor, but like someone that I find compelling in a lot of stuff.
I thought she was fine. Like I thought she's been in like movies.
She shouldn't be in action.
The Fifth Element. Ever heard of it?
Ever heard of it? A little movie.
She was great in The Fifth Element. She was really good in The $1 Million Hotel. I don't think she's an action star, and she shouldn't be.
Was she in Zoolander?
She was.
Yeah,
she
was,
plays
actually
one of the henchmen or whatever.
Yeah.
Leave it to Kaylin to always bring it back to some fucking comedy movie randomly.
Hey, we all have our talents, okay? I'm gonna bring it to video games. Kaylin's gonna bring it to Half Baked, and Steve's gonna
to raunch comedy. Steve can get mad about it. Yeah,
Steve's just gonna get mad.
My favorite frame shot is Ice Cube and Statham at the door with guns drawn.
When she's possessed, or they think she's possessed, or whatever.
Yeah, I think that was the scene. Yeah.
Not for nothing, Ice Cube holding a gun looks fucking sick.
Yeah, he's got a good like rage face or like prepared to fight face. Yeah. When he's telling the tale of like how he was gonna go rob the I don't what was he robbing? I'm not really sure. He wanted to get food, I think, or drugs. I can't remember.
It's like a casino in a base.
He said he was hungry,
but then he found a bag of money.
I think he was trying to just pillage.
And then he went in, and then like everybody was dead, and he was like, "Holy fuck!" And then he just like took I'm gonna call them redbacks. You know, we were talking about bluebacks last week. Because they show the money and it's like regular American money, but all the green sort of like inking is red instead. I'm like, they just made redbacks for Mars. This is sick. And now I think I know what bluebacks might look like based on them showing me redbacks.
That's exactly what I imagined. Just an American $100 Bill Franklin.
It looks like our fives.
Nope.
But when he first goes into that room, he has his bottom lip like chewed in, where he's like, and his eyebrows are like so pointed, and he's just got a shotgun ready to go. And he's like, and he holds it, and he doesn't like let it go when he sees the body. He's just kind of holding his lip, and it's intimidating. He's got a good mad guy face.
Well, his face looks like it sounds like when he raps. I think that's why he's a compelling actor, because he's able to just I can almost picture him in the studio rapping when I watch him in movies, because he makes he's just so hard.
Whenever I see him nowadays, I think of this one sort of like fantasy concept art that I had seen a couple of years ago. And it was before they recast J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, and somebody had done like an image of Ice Cube as J. Jonah Jameson, and he had like the like J. Jonah Jameson's haircut was like that classic sort of like the box cut, and he had that with like the gray and smoking a cigar and like holding up like a newspaper with Spider-Man on it. And I immediately was like, I think that maybe he would be such a good J. Jonah Jameson that I can't even deny it.
This rumored POC MCU, like a Black X-Men essentially, I think that would be sick.
Him as J. Jonah Jameson also kind of makes sense because he has the attitude of J. Jonah Jameson in most of his role. Like it would be a typecast to a certain way, but like he could pull off the J. Jonah Jameson energy.
He'd be reprising his character from 21 Jump Street, though.
Jump Street.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. I need pictures of Spider-Man now, and he's just smoking a cigar the whole time.
And shoots,
motherfucker!
Just shoots an SMG into the air.
A chrome one. Those chrome guns at the end of this
chrome
movie
guns,
was
dude.
just like, that was a little bit too much for me.
I
I was like, why
love
are they so
that.
shiny?
I loved it
That's
so
a
much.
redeeming quality of this. Okay, so there's a bit that I want to talk about. Another reason why I kind of enjoy this movie for what it is. It's some of the shots, specifically right when what's her name, Clea DuVall, whatever. That whole sequence.
Cruella DeVille's in this movie.
Yeah, that whole sequence where it's like an outdoor gunfight essentially, and guns versus discs, really felt like a video game. There's a lot of moments throughout this that were very video gamey, and it would be like this movie called like something different, like something like a video game's name would have been fine. Like if this was Doom, people would be like, that's not Doom, that sucks. But I would think that's...
What about Quake?
No, Quake takes place in Quake's a little different. But you know what I mean? Like, do you see what I'm getting?
What
at?
about StarCraft?
No, definitely.
I mean,
not
this is
StarCraft.
kind of similar to a lot of like Doom tales.
The
but
Doom movie.
It really is.
It's very similar to the video game Doom 3. Is one where that game is really grounded in like reality. They're just they're in a space station like Outland that happens to like punch a hole into another dimension that's hell. This feels a lot like that version of Doom, not like the version of Doom where gunman finds himself literally in hell. What's the fucking Doom guy? Is his name just Doom Guy?
His name's Doom Guy.
Doom
Yeah.
Guy.
He doesn't have a name. Yeah.
There were a lot
The
of
other
shots...
people that have names like Dr. Hasselhoff or whatever, being like,
What I have done here is against all humanity, and I take all responsibility for my actions.
There were shots in this movie that felt like, remember like the old gun games in arcades, like Revolution X. I kept thinking of at certain points. Terminator 2,
Time Crisis.
There were shots. There were like sweeping shots that were showing just like people shooting.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's really interesting. Like this almost feels like a video game adaptation of something.
I mean,
that
not to
doesn't-
like pull us off tracks, but like the Doom movie actually does a very good job of having moments like that where like they throw in shit that is literally just like a first-person shooter
There's
for
a
2 minutes.
first-person
You're like,
shooter
oh.
sequence that was very cool.
The Doom movie was with The Rock, right?
Yeah, The Rock and Carl Urban
Was
are
it
the
Carl
two main
Urban?
characters.
Yeah.
It was Carl Urban.
Yeah, and then there's like a bunch of other recognizable faces throughout the.
Nowadays, if you go back and watch that movie, it probably plays like an Expendables movie with the amount of people that I remember being in that at the time.
I saw that movie on Halloween night, and my face was painted like Darth Maul. We went to a party, and then the party like was like really shitty. So I was like, "You guys want to just go see Doom instead?"
You guys want to watch Ghosts of Mars?
Yeah. And we went and saw Doom, and I was like, "This is the best movie I ever saw."
Around the beginning when she takes the clear or whatever, and then Pam Grier's like, "You're high right now, aren't you?" She didn't look high to me. Did she look high to you guys?
I think that's the point. I think Clear is a drug that makes you like you have like a hallucinogenic experience, because you got to remember these people, they probably they imply that they can go to the outer ends of the galaxy or the universe, which what the fuck are you talking about? But there's a lot of time just traveling when there's space travel involved. So this drug, because there's 2 drugs in this movie. One, you get a clean high, you hallucinate your balls off for about 4 hours, and then you're fine. The other drug,
drug is what Carpenter was doing.
The other drug,
laughing gas,
will cause you to. It's literally just nitrous.
Cut your thumb off.
It'll literally just make you do whatever, and that is one of
when
my
that
favorite.
Scene came up,
it's one of my
I'm like,
favorite
no,
scenes.
he's not going to. He's
I
not
knew
going,
he was going to.
That's the only moment in the whole movie that's actually funny. Like, there's a couple other moments that are supposed to be like chuckle bucket moments, but like that was the only time that I actually was like, he did like. But it was the shot that they the way they framed it. It was a comedy shot, because when he chops it, literally everybody at the table looks over.
Yeah.
And it holds there for like 1, 2, and then he holds up the thing and his thumb is missing. And I was like, that was some pretty good comedic timing.
Jesus,
I'll tell you the worst joke in the whole movie. It's at the very end when she says, "You would make a good cop," and he says, "You would make a good criminal," and they go. They basically look at the camera and say, nah. And
they wink and they high five.
It's not basically. Ice Cube directly looks into the camera.
Yeah. What was what?
You should have went like this.
I didn't understand why. What's your guys' take on that?
Or take
It's
my
a bad
take.
movie.
I don't know. What do you mean? What's my take on that moment?
Well, they
didn't know how to end the
that
movie.
When people put things in movies, they put it in for a reason. What are they trying to,
I bet you that John Carpenter thought this movie was way funnier and cheesy than it actually was, and he thought the cheese was probably coming off as being good bad movie. I'm making a good movie that's bad on purpose, and it just comes off as a bad movie a lot of the time, right?
You nailed it. That's exactly it. He thought that this movie was super tongue in cheek, sometimes over the top, hilarious, that people would really get it. But I don't know how much of that is genuine and how much of that is I fucked up.
I've talked about this. I've talked about this sort of phenomenon on the show with other movies, and I think what it is especially when there's multiple writers and lots of people making a movie, everybody has a different idea of what the movie is. So you have a situation like this where they throw in a couple of slapsticky moments into a movie that otherwise is completely serious the whole time. But then you have to wonder if those cheesy moments near the beginning where they're just on Mars and it looks terrible. It looks like they put a red hue on somebody's fucking driveway. That maybe that was part of the visual storytelling of the comedy. Maybe that.
Well, I think that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
that's what this movie was meant to be. But it was, critics at the time and audiences were just like, "What the fuck is this? This movie sucks."
Expecting more because it's Natasha Henstridge was a pretty big name.
Well,
at
you
the
think
time.
about something like
newcomer Jason Statham. You got Ice Cube. It's John Carpenter. It's got a budget. It's not a huge.
You think
budget,
about something like
budget.
They Live, right? Where it is super satirical, super funny. Something like Big
There's
Trouble.
No satire in this movie,
Well, there's not really much that you can satirize when you're just. They're not going into the inner workings of how this world works. They're not really going into the details of the women being the strongest. They're just kind of having these tropey characters exist, and they're all very one-dimensional and there's nothing to them. But
Neil Patrick Harris
there's moments where
doesn't show up as a Nazi to really strike it home that these
yes,
are bad
I think
guys,
Paul Verhoeven is a master of the craft. No one can ever stack up to him. But there's a moment where Jason Statham and Species are there's an arm that falls out, and they look at the arm severed on the ground, and then Jason Statham says, "This does not make me happy," and I'm like. That would be funny if he just kept saying that. If that was a thing that he kept saying throughout the movie, this does not make me happy. That would be funny. And the way he says it, it is kind of funny, but it would be more funny if every time something bad happened, it's the Star Wars, I got a bad feeling about this. He just says that this does not make me happy. It would have been pretty great. It would have been fine, I think. But sorry, go ahead.
Just an open question to the three of you. Jason, talking about star power, Statham originally being cast as the lead in the movie, they changed their minds because they wanted more star power, so they gave the lead to Ice Cube and kept Statham on as a secondary character. How do you think this movie would be different if Statham kept that leading role?
It would be the same movie,
right?
If he said, "Damn girl, I like you already," and then punched her in the face, would it be a better movie?
And that's my point, is that at the heart, this is a very generic film.
Yeah.
Everything about this movie screams generic.
Right? You can just swap people in and out of different roles, and it doesn't change a thing.
Well, Courtney Love is supposed to be the main character.
Exactly. Elevating it, though, it elevates it. Do you know what I mean? If you, had... if you didn't try to go with big names,
I think this movie would have been better with relative unknowns for the era. I think it would have been way better. I think
the movie would have been better with maximalist, over the top, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it should have been.
Stallone.
Yeah, because then you can just feed them those dumbass one-liners.
I don't know why
it's fine.
I don't know why the Expendables haven't gone to space yet. So
give it time.
Yeah, exactly.
I think if he kept Kurt Russell in the role for this movie, I know, Steve, you said this wasn't an escape film. I disagree. But
I mean, from what I looked into, it seemed like they officially were there was an escape from Earth
Script.
movie, but like this is in no way based on that. But there's so many like parallels you could like even like I said, like Ice Cube dresses exactly like Plissken without the eye patch, and his pants are a different.
But here's
camo.
what I kept wondering: like they do escape from the mining colony, and then she immediately is like, "We got to go back and nuke them." That's not very Snake Plissken.
That was like the movie's over. Just end it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think
who fucking cares?
if they kept Kurt Russell in that role, say he was Desolation, I think this movie would have been what Carpenter wanted Escape from LA to have been.
His eye patch is just on the other side.
Or it just goes back and forth between different scenes.
When they show up and they're like, "Holy shit, you're Plissken," and he's like, "Call me Desolation."
At one point, it's just over his mouth,
right in the middle. Eye patch
just
gags
on his nose.
Yeah, eye patch
on the nose.
Eye patch gags will always be funny to me.
The one thing that like kind of broke the Snake Plissken attitude for me from Desolation was the brother dying. I think was like the one thing.
Uno.
You're like, what?
Uno.
Yep.
Oh,
He's my favorite. He was my favorite.
I did not understand what you said. All I heard was like, no. I thought you were saying no. And I was like, oh, Kalen's disagreeing with me? What do you have to say then? Because he actually like shows a bit of human emotion, and that's like one thing that Snake really never fucking does ever.
Yeah.
Is feel compassion or empathy. He's clearly a psychopath.
I do love that scene though where Uno dies. Or not Uno, where is it Dos who dies? And he asks, how's your brother?
Is the one with the thumb. Trez is the other guy.
Okay. Well,
the noise he makes.
Well, no, he's like, how's your brother? Or did your brother make it? He's like, nah. And then he's like, oh, and then just dies.
Doesn't he say, oh God? He goes,
oh God. Yeah. And then Henstridge is like, he's your brother?
Yeah.
Yeah. You just heard that conversation.
And then she's like,
why are we talking right now?
She's like, oh, and then she like doesn't know what to say. And I thought she was going to be like, I'm sorry. Or like, like I understand. Or like, or like even just like all right, we'll have to deal with this later. She just like looks away like, fuck. Like I fucked up. Right? I shouldn't have asked that question. Yeah. Oh my God. But yeah, I forgot about that death. I laughed out loud when he's like, where's your brother? And he's like, he didn't make it. And then he goes, oh God. And then just like, dies like immediately. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh. I've been kind of scratching off my my notes as we go. We never really went through a synopsis, but there isn't really a way to do it because it's so all over the fucking place.
It's basically that. Well, that's the problem. Natasha Henstridge.
They show up to investigate. They find the town has been murdered, and then the people that murdered the people that showed up there are like zombies that have been possessed by gas, and they try and kill them, and then they escape on a train, and then they come back and blow it up, and then they escape on the train again. That's the whole story.
But then it ends in a cliffhanger for a sequel where they come and attack the.
It could be a sequel.
City. When I was looking for a poster to post on social media, one of the autocomplete Google searches is Ghosts of Mars 2. So people clearly wonder if there's a sequel to this, or if there's.
Well, like I said, there's like a huge fan base of people that actually really, really like this movie a lot.
Huge?
That's crazy.
Well, okay, sorry. When I say huge, I don't mean like a Marvel level of devotion. I mean like a lot of people.
Bigger
like
than
it.
you think.
Bigger than you think. Yeah.
There's
like a cult
probably
following is like going maybe too far.
There's probably posts on like the John Carpenter subreddit that are specifically about Ghosts of Mars.
And
there's
just people
probably
discussing
not
like
a
what
Ghost
the
of
plot
Mars subreddit.
Screw all 10 of those people.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a nod to Alien, but or actually it might have been Aliens that the scene's from. It was either Alien or Aliens, but she kind of has the same like little top and panties outfit as Ripley
at the end.
Yeah.
I thought that too. I was like, it's late in the movie.
Are you talking about when she's like lying on the bed and just puts her pants on?
Yeah, but she's wearing like a little tank top and panties, which is the same thing that Ripley wears when she gets out of the
cryopod.
Yeah.
That's a director taking advantage of somebody who's used to being naked most of the time as a model.
Yeah,
but
I
that's just
see
like
the same thing with Mila Jovovich.
We want to see your boobs. You've been wearing a leather jacket this whole time.
Yeah.
I thought it was weird to put that moment so late in the movie. You know, if you're gonna do it, like, why is it at the very end?
To keep people in the theater.
She's gonna get some form of naked in this thing. Just you wait. You're just saying that.
Just
loud,
you wait.
fully,
It's gonna happen,
with the other
fellas.
6 people in 2001 in the theater who have gone to see this pile of nonsense.
I wanted to say that like Escape from LA, there is like a seedling of a good idea here that would have been more interesting. And we talked a little bit last week about how the plastic surgery cult is like super interesting, and I'd like to see a whole movie just devoted to that idea. I think that the story of the scientist Whitlock is more interesting, and like the bits you see, it unlocks creativity in your own mind where you're like, oh, that's kind of interesting and cool, but then it like it halts so abruptly, and it's like the only time you get to see Mars during the day. You're like, oh, this actually doesn't look too bad when they're doing daytime Mars. It like harkens back to like your visualization of like Total Recall and stuff like that. But it also gives you like an idea of that character being more interesting, and she doesn't really get much to do either, considering she should be the one that knows everything, right? But she doesn't know anything. She doesn't know fuck all. All she knows is that she accidentally opened a weird ancient seal.
And doesn't even say the movie title.
She was like, "Oh no, I accidentally unleashed the
Mars.
Ghosts of Mars."
I 100% agree in that I think the stories, the individual stories of the characters within the film are more interesting, or could be more interesting, than the story that interconnects all of them. Because I don't really care about how their stories intertwine so much as what everybody else was doing in the first place.
Yeah, and the majority of like the connective tissue between them is just that they need to escape and not die. Like we need everyone alive to have a gun to shoot these things.
Yeah.
There is one line from like the actor that plays the scientist is the same actor in Blade Runner who plays like the stripper with the snake, the one that like he chases through the streets,
see-through jacket.
And he shoots her through like the million plate glass windows or whatever. And like the whole movie, I was like, who the fuck is this? I know who this is. And I had to look it up. And I'm like, she's been in like every TV show ever, which I don't watch a lot of TV, so I didn't recognize her. I'm like, no, it's not this, not that. And then it's like Blade Runner popped up. I'm like, she's in oh yeah, she fucking humps that snake on stage. I remember that. Because she has like a certain level of gravitas that the other characters don't have, right? Like she has this like presence that most of the other people in the cell with her are lacking. There was a point where there's 2 older men in the cell with her who one of them gets possessed and starts chewing his own fingers off, and the other one gets his head cut off or whatever. And like in my brain, even right now, I cannot differentiate those 2 characters like at all. Like they're just there. Like one of them was maybe balder than the other one. And then the other characters are just like also cannon fodder, right? Like one of them is just there to have some cleavage and be sexy towards the peach man who cuts his thumb off. Trez? Is that Trez or Dos? Who knows? I don't know.
Dos, I believe.
So like there are all these characters, and like you do think of like what was this character's position in this town? It is like an Old West town, right? Like it's a prospector town. And you never really get the satisfaction of knowing, but I think that also has to do with the fact that there's so many of them, right? Like there's so many characters that you don't really get to dive into any of them. And we talk about this all the time, where it's like miniseries. Imagine getting to know all of these characters. It probably would be way more interesting.
Myers' fucking modern day Netflix show with like the graphics the special effects they use for Netflix are like leaps and bounds ahead of 2001 for even a low budget.
Yeah,
Netflix, if you're watching.
But they'd also like make their costume design.
John
better.
Netflix, if you're watching this podcast, if you're one of the 4 people watching,
the costume design in this movie is like super duper uninspired. They all dress like fucking Nazis, and it's like not good. Like, and they look like Nazis who like cheaped out on their own uniforms.
Was that what he was trying to go for? Because that's what I thought too.
Well, there's a certain thing that like a lot of sci-fi does, which is sort of like this intimidating utilitarian style future. And it's just like a lot of people associate that with like it being cool because it's intimidating. But when you think about it, the Nazis did it to be intimidating. Like they were literally dressing with like skulls and shit on their uniforms.
I think we might be the baddies. We've got skulls on our suits. I think we
it's
might
like
be
we
the
literally
baddies.
have a skull on my hat. Like that. Does that mean I'm a bad guy? Like it's fucking crazy. The Nazis were dressing like villains. Like they knew that they were bad. They didn't give a fucking shit.
Yeah, they were called stormtroopers.
Yeah, that's where the term stormtrooper comes from.
Oh, snap. Interesting.
I did also watch the trailer for this, not before, but afterwards. And I'm glad I didn't watch it before because I don't know if you guys watched the trailer. Did you? Anyone?
No, I didn't. And I forgot that we were...
The trailer is narrated by Keith David.
Oh,
He's
shit.
like,
What?
He's like, Mars. I'm like, Keith David's in this movie? Like, that's
Keith
what I would
David
have
so
thought,
bad.
is
I mean,
that
who
Keith
doesn't?
David... he, like, oh my God. I got upset.
What a
Because I'm like,
misdirect.
if I had watched that trailer before I watched the movie, I would have assumed that, like, Keith David would have been, like, the president of Mars being like, what do you mean a bunch of ghosts killed that mining base? Like, I would have assumed that he would have, like, had some sort of weird low-level cameo in the movie. But I guess maybe he just, like, showed up to do John Carpenter a favor. Like, I'll do the trailer, but I'm not being in this piece of shit.
I got to my note that I wanted to bring up to go back to this movie kind of looking like shit. Ben, are you good, buddy?
He will be.
Okay. It looks like an episode of Star Trek TNG.
Yeah.
A lot of
That's
the
fair.
time.
Hey, sorry about that.
No problem. You missed my Keith David impression.
No.
You're. Oh, there it is. It
Now,
was
here's a
frozen
man
on
who
the
knows
desk.
his meatballs.
But did you find that this looked like serial sci-fi from the 90s? Like like literally.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before. It looks like an FX movie or like a sci-fi channel movie from the early 2000s.
Did you guys hear about the new what the gimmick for the new Sharknado movie is? Like, I want to bring this up because it's so.
Yeah, don't they go
weird.
back in time?
Yeah, they go back in time, and Neil deGrasse Tyson is Merlin, and he comes to the future. And when they come to the future, they get spliced with dragons, so they breathe fire now.
Are you doing a bit?
No,
it's real.
I've also seen this.
Sharknado
And Neil deGrasse
What?
Tyson is like, so I'm in the new Sharknado movie, but I'm in the past as Merlin.
I know, Ben.
And I'm playing
like
Merlin, but I'm
you've
doing
watched-
actual science, and people
Yeah,
think that I'm doing magic.
I know, Ben.
That's the whole shit.
I was leaving your place one time to go out because I was staying with you. I think I was in town, and I was leaving to go out to a bar, and you guys were sitting down to watch like the first Sharknado or possibly the third one.
No one can keep track anymore.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and I kind of that's this movie series that I kind of just want to fucking bang my head against. If I'm gonna call you gotta cut your teeth on bad movies, and I think if you want to call yourself a true movie reviewer, you gotta get through those Resident Evil movies, and you gotta get through.
I
those
wonder if like
Sharknadoes.
Mars tornadoes are
Birdemic.
like bigger than regular.
I've seen
because there's so much
Birdemic.
open
Two?
space.
No.
3.
What? Get the fuck
Third-
away from me.
Third one's out soon, if not already.
That was my response when you pitched Swordfish. It's like, fuck you. We're not doing Swordfish.
We're doing a hacker month, and we are just naming hacker movies, and I said Swordfish, and he said fuck you.
I mean, I'm with him, man. I'm totally
I
with
remember
him.
there was only one selling point. There was only one selling
Jason was like, why fuck you, though? And I was like, I don't even know how to explain it to you, but fuck you, no.
But
Never.
Antonio Banderas goes like this, doesn't he?
Yeah, and that's what ruined his career.
Yeah, that's why he's only known as Puss in Boots now to Gen Z.
Okay.
What about Zorro?
Cats.
He's
I said
literally
Gen
just-
Z, Kaylin. Gen Z.
He's
Yeah, I
literally
thought about it
Desperados.
I was wait. Zorro starts with a Z.
Generation
watched-
Zorro.
Zorro, the first one the other night.
The very first
Not-
one.
Yeah, the first the first Antonio Banderas one. And I gotta tell you,
Sorry.
not bad. Not bad. It's not
Yeah,
bad.
it's good. It's
I
good.
fucking liked it.
It's
You're
better
Antonio.
than bad.
Hey,
like-
look, did you go outside with your parents and then a killer, a robber, shot them, and your mom's pearls bounced on the ground, then you became Batman?
No,
Is that what happened?
I watched Zorro.
Zorro, the first one the other night.
Listen, I gotta go return some videotapes.
That's a good
one.
That's a good.
I'm just crossing my notes off here.
Scene I had a good laugh at. What were you saying?
I was just crossing up a note that said the cinematography is kind of really bad. I scratched it out. Like, yeah, we already kind of covered that. It is kind of really bad.
I'm not sure if it was supposed to be a joke or just made me laugh, but she when it's earlier on and she finds the guy in the tractor truck little mobile thing or whatever.
Yep.
Rover.
Yeah.
And it's called a rover.
Rover. Yeah, perfect. And then Statham meets up with her, and it's like there was a guy in there or whatever. Go let him out or something. And then it's like, oh, it's locked. What was going on? It's like, oh, he said don't open the door. And it's like you just told him after you just told him to go open it.
He said open. Yeah. That's true. I was so hyper focused on how dumb the cross dissolves in flashbacks were in that second that I didn't even think about the fact that she was telling him to open the door after he was like slitting his own throat, being like, "Don't open the fucking door!" Killing himself.
Can we actually talk about how oddly selective this weird Martian fog is in infecting people?
And they don't really explain why, because even when it comes down in the wave. Yeah. It seemed like some people were fine and some people weren't. Like they weren't as affected as others.
It's sentient. We know.
I think it's sentient, and I think it can its point of view.
Go for the leader.
Just
go for the leader and win.
Maybe they're too strong.
Well, she gets possessed for like a heartbeat, and then it's just like, no, I have visions, so I'll reject it.
The way I interpreted this is that in this fish culture of Mars, the physically strongest was the leader. So it was going after the physically strongest people over and over again. Like it was trying to possess the people that were
the physically strongest or whoever it has access to, also.
Or this guy. Yeah. He's ready. If I can get the guy with the muscles, I'm going for that guy. But like that's why that one was in charge, I guess. Like I assume that one was meant to have been possessed by a specific ghost of Mars. Like this cloud is like a collection of ghosts of Mars.
Yeah, hive mind, whatever.
Is this a prequel to it's not really like because I could tie those two movies together.
It's kind of like that. It is kind of like that movie. But like the way that the scientist explains it is like there are some species that when they have no access to water, they sink into the earth and they become stone, and then once water reactivates them, they come back to life, which is like a real thing that happens to some, bacteria and stuff. Yeah. But like,
this movie is
how did they turn into that? Like, what the fuck? Yeah. These ghosts? How'd they turn into spores and dust and shit? I want to know that. I want to know more about the ghosts of Mars. Like the thing is like this movie did absolutely nothing for world building. It's just a scenario in a situation that is unexplained. And I like lore and world building and understanding things, but they just didn't really fucking give a shit about that at all. Like they didn't give me anything.
You're mad at every this movie for the same reason I was mad at Escape from New York, essentially.
But every set in this movie looked like it was built for a stage play.
That's because it was built inside of a warehouse because they were like, we can't make it.
Oh no.
Was it not?
No, they actually dyed a gypsum mine red.
I fucking knew they did some dumb shit with actual just rocks, and it was either a tint or they fucking just sprayed that red spray paint that they used
white
for
gypsum, and they just dyed it all red.
Interesting.
Do you think that one of those rocks?
Well, then why is it all at night? I guess he didn't want to like color correct the sky and shit. Because like the whole movie is.
They had no money for that.
Yeah.
Their best outlook was like, look, we're not going to make back half of our budget. Maybe at best.
Nighttime only.
Yeah. So let's not spend any money. Let's
Why are there no stars?
Minimum.
No stars.
But here's a question. Here's a question for you, Ben. Do you think they went into that movie? Because I mentioned this. I was talking about this earlier. Do you think they went into that in this movie with that notion, or did they shoot like some over budget shit right at the get, and then they were like, we have no money to do the fucking world buildy make it look good stuff.
I think Carpenter went into this as a final film of a multi-picture contract, and he's like, I don't know what to do anymore, so I'm just gonna pull from what did well before.
It's his mandatory.
That's what
fun.
I was thinking too.
Exactly. He's like, one more of these and I'm out. He actually cited that the bad reviews and the heat he took from this was his reason to leave Hollywood. Because people didn't get it. I'm like, that's because you made a fucking terrible movie, man.
Movie, dude. With some fucking.
It's entertaining,
actors.
but it's not good.
He was also, I think, probably used to like just people being so in tune with his sensibilities and shit that like
exactly
any kind of criticism, he's probably like, well, fuck it, I don't need to make these movies anymore.
He had 20 years of that, and then literally in the first year of the new century, people just didn't know how to take his movies anymore.
Fuck you, John Carpenter. Go to hell, you. Go to Mars. Why don't you?
Well, the thing is, too, like, people hated on The Thing when it came out. It was a bomb at the box office.
Most of his movies don't really do well critically.
Exactly. Like, and I don't know if he was hoping or relying on that to be the fact later in his career, but you can't do that for your entire career and expect to become successful.
He had access to the internet, and he saw everyone just shitting on him. He was like, no!
He went to
my powers are waning!
He went to shitshoot.com.
He got his son to show him how to use the internet.
Yeah.
And
Dad, what's your email password?
It's just
Pork Chop Express, of course.
The care wasn't there.
Yeah, I don't think that he gave a shit. I don't think that he put as much like time and effort into character development and understanding his own project. You know, like
I agree with you completely. But we're on the same page with that.
There's stuff in this movie that is like pretty coherent and cohesive, and like the fun is undeniable. If the four of us had watched this movie in person together, we would have had a fucking amazing hour and 38 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, but the best parts of this movie are done worse than when we saw them in his other films.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like a band, like an old decrepit band playing their greatest hits, but they forgot to practice, and their fingers are snapping at the guitar strings.
And an audio tape is playing over their performance.
Yeah, and it's like
out of tune somehow.
It's unfortunate, but it's true, right? Like this movie is not great. It's not a great movie.
It's John Carpenter playing the hits.
Yeah,
and failing.
But I mean, like, I think we can all agree that if John Carpenter today said, all right, I have an idea for a movie, I want to make it, and they gave him like his choice of cinematographers, his choice of whatever, and like he was gonna make a movie, I think we would all just kind of like be like excited for what he was not. It doesn't necessarily mean it was gonna be good, but like we would be excited to see it. I think
definitely if
he's still alive.
If like I'm getting Dean Cundy back as my cinematographer, and we've got a movie planned called Spirits of Venus.
Yeah,
you're like, well,
Spirits of what?
I'm in.
Venus.
I'm totally in.
And Kurt Russell's in it, and
we all know Dean Cundy will come back.
The guy looks like Meatloaf.
Well, he can still do Escape from Earth. That could still be a thing.
Well, that's yeah.
But we're
imagine they make a new Escape movie. And it turns out that Ghosts of Mars and Escape from LA and New York, where they all took place in the same universe, and then he meets up with Ice Cube in space.
Yeah.
And it's just Kurt Russell and Ice Cube having a space adventure to Venus.
Look,
that would be so good.
I think you can in-universe all of his movies because they're so in different places too, right? So, you know, I haven't seen every John Carpenter movie, but like all the ones I've seen... all the ones
we're gonna watch all of them, man.
All the ones I've seen, I could easily put them in the same universe because the spooky elements are all very similar, and the macabre stuff is all very similar, and the occult stuff is all very similar, and the actiony stuff is all very similar.
It's pretty like Stephen King-ish, right? Where like everything is like magical, science fiction-y, aliens, demons. It all exists within his movies, and sometimes overlapping into other movies that you could easily picture a timeline where all of his stories kind of link up into one world, which is that's kind of cool, and that is like the sign of an autistic. That
is the sign of an autistic. Good night, everyone.
I meant to say auteuristic. But he's an auteur, right? Like he knows what he wants, and his style is very signature.
Yeah, it's like a John Waters in that respect, I guess.
Or like
That's Steven's dad.
No, my grandpa was named John Waters.
Oh
so.
shit.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I would be excited if he was to come back and do something else, and I'd
be there.
Hey, I think that every John Carpenter movie may work better as a novel, and I think that maybe his calling was a novelist and maybe not filmmaker. But he's kind of
he doesn't write all these fucking movies either, though. Like
I know, but he's kind of like a Sam Raimi, where especially his early stuff like really changed the landscape of filmmaking because.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Kevin Smith always tells this story about like he didn't really know what he was into when he was like 13 or 14, and he saw Slackers, and he is like Slackers is a movie where the director just made basically like almost a documentary, but like with a plot, and it's just so, that movie I remember watching it. It's just so all over the place, and it's just really visually stunning to look at in a like on a small scale. It's a very interesting way to make a movie, and he saw that and he was like, oh, I can just do whatever I want. People watch Evil Dead, people watch John Carpenter movies, and they go, oh, if I have the budget, I can just make whatever the fuck I want. But the problem is John Carpenter grew out of that and kept his I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want. But you get to a certain point in your career where you should utilize the technology of the time. I feel like if John Carpenter made a movie now, it would be dope because he would have people surrounding him. He would have people surrounding him being like, no, you got to make things different now. You can't just do whatever you want. You have to appeal to a bigger audience. And I don't mean like a mass audience. I mean, your fans are there's such a large amount of your fans who all want different things that you actually have to now, because your name is so synonymous with breaking rules, you're going to break all kinds of different rules for all kinds of different people. So you actually have to listen to the people that know what they're doing, like, for the time. And I think that's why he's never made a movie again.
I have a response to this.
Me too.
Sorry. Okay, go ahead. You first. You first.
You have to keep in mind that being a director doesn't mean that you're making what you want to make. More often than not, as a director, you're an employee working for the producer, and you're doing what they want in your style as they see fit. I think over time, he became cynical because he was being forced to make bigger movies with a larger budget, but not a budget large enough to make the movie that people wanted him to make, because he did so well with lower budgets, with like Escape from New York. I think if you want a John Carpenter film to be successful, give him the minimal amount of money that he needs to tell the story that he wants, that he's happy with, and give it a wider release. The people are there to pay for it, and they will go watch it. Like, there are so many fans of his early stuff. It's as his budgets expanded, as the expectations grew to be blockbusters, to be crazy action films. He's not an action director. No. He's a drama. He's a horror director. So when you're expecting multi-million-dollar box office results from somebody who's not specialized in doing what you are expecting them to draw, what do you think is going to happen? Just let him do what he's good at. Give it a wider release. In the end, it's going to be cheaper, and you're going to see a bigger profit off of it.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
What I was going to say is, actually, you covered like a bunch of shit that I was going to say, but now I can just say like something different. No. I think that he also sort of became disillusioned by the fact that, you know, he's very creative. He has a good understanding of how to like put a person on screen, and is responsible for several people becoming really famous in their careers. But he also was met with people having been so impacted by his own movies that people started making John Carpenter movies that were better than John Carpenter movies that he could make. And like he would see movies that reminded him so much of his own movies that he was like, I think that there is a younger generation now that are making the same things that I would like to make, but they're making it better.
One of those people.
Yeah, and he's watching his craft be perfected by people that were inspired by him, which probably
You think
feels
he's happy about that, and he can like sit back?
well. I was gonna say it's probably like a double-edged sword, where he's probably happy about the fact that he's influenced people to make something that he would love to make, but seeing them make it better than him is like, well, I'm not needed here anymore. Like my job is done. Like I've seen what I would want to make and how I'd want to make it being made better than maybe I could have made it.
That's an amazing point I never considered.
And it's kind of sad, but at the same time, it's like kind of nice, like it means that, he has like a nice lush career, and he made what, like 19, 20 movies, something like that. And each and every one of them has clearly inspired somebody, because you can almost pinpoint a singular moment in any one of his movies that has been either homaged or completely ripped off or like redone in a loving way, and like that's pretty fucking cool. Like I don't think that he's like upset with his career. I think that he's maybe upset that his career didn't continue on in the way that like Spielberg or like other people that like I think of in the same light. Like I when I think of Spielberg, I think of Carpenter. They're not on the same level maybe in terms of like prestige or what people are willing to pay them, but like I love those two creators' movies equally in many ways, and I think that's pretty admirable. I know we were talking earlier about never meet your heroes, but I would love to meet him. I would love to meet that guy.
I'm sure he's fine.
Honestly, I think it would be. I think it's great to call Carpenter a practical visionary, in that he knows his limitations. He doesn't want to go past them. Sometimes he's forced to, but when you let him do his thing, like he'll never be as big as Spielberg, like you said, Steve. But that doesn't mean his ideas are less impressive.
Or impactful. Like just because he's not going to be as big doesn't mean that what he makes is not going to impact somebody on the same level as,
well,
Jaws,
this guy better than
example.
Spielberg did, except for Jaws may be absolutely terrified of the ocean, which I'll never get into ever again in my life.
Which is a crazy thing about Ben, because we both grew up by the ocean. So it's like you watched Jaws and then looked out your window and you were like, oh, God.
Jaws is in there.
Yeah, basically.
That's where Jaws lives.
Moose Jaws. I really think that we've hit like hit the nail on the head for John Carpenter, because he is kind of all of these like he also created this dichotomy of people endlessly discussing his movies, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
Like all of the people that do this shit that we're doing, like with a huger audience, in some cases better than us, some cases not as good.
Hey, we're the John Carpenter of those things.
But like
we're the John. I'm the John Carpenter of podcasts. Let's be real.
The fact that we're all talking about it still, and
put all my friends on all my podcasts that I create.
The fact that like all the other podcasts are also like will take chunks of time to talk about him. I mean, like I know he's never going to see this, but like it's so nice, and I want to like thank him and be like, thank you, man, for making so many movies that like affected me over my entire life.
That has a chance
great.
Of seeing this podcast, John Carpenter, I would put him high on that list.
Yeah, he'd be high up there.
He is my favorite director of all time, and he's made a few stumbles along the way. Like that's obvious. Like not all of his movies are hits, but
I still want to watch him stumble.
Yes, and that's it.
I still want to watch him stumble.
Even when he falters, I'm still there, and I always will be. I think all of us will be. I mean, we might.
Some people might look at like a stumble as like oh shit. Well, here we go. This guy's fucking up, and other people might look at a stumble and be like, that's endearing, and I like that he was able to do that still, even though he didn't achieve what maybe he wanted to or what we wanted to see from it. We still got to see him do something interesting and different. That's not something that you can say from a lot of directors, because like there are directors that I like, but sometimes I find out they directed something that I was like, what? He directed that? Like I would have never have known. And like you can just look at a Carpenter movie for 2 seconds and know that he made it,
And I love that.
It's so good. It's so nice.
Good.
You know, guys, I'm not as nice as Desolation, and I will cut your fucking titties off. So.
Oh God!
You call
Not
me scumbag, motherfucker.
Not my titties. I need them to feed my children.
That was my favorite line of the movie. I wrote that, and I wrote the final movie, the line of the movie. Do you think that John Carpenter will do like a final, like I've got to make one more movie to sort of put a pin in it, or what's his last movie that he made?
The Ward.
The Ward, 2010.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's been
Heard.
13. Oh shit. So it's been 13 years. Notorious Hollywood piece of shit. Amber Heard was his muse.
The subtitle, it's The Ward Amica with a question mark.
Amica?
I don't know if you saw the video of the trial, but there's one of Johnny's friends or whatever is hilarious.
We don't need to go through this the whole thing. It's like a long thing to explain. Yeah.
You don't get the Amica reference, or you don't at this point.
Before we get too close to the end, because I know we're getting close there, I have some actual questions that I wrote down that I want to like ask everybody.
Sure.
Why are they on Mars?
Because that's where they have to escape from.
Yeah, they gotta get the space rocks or whatever. I think
because Snake shut down all of the technology on Earth, and then Earth like beat itself up.
Right. I never thought about that, but that's actually a pretty interesting premise.
Because in 2013, in that weird dystopian future, they clearly had some crazy technology. So they may have already had a ship.
So the reason they're on Mars is via the plot of another movie.
Yes,
got it.
Well, I mean, it should be the third escape film, so
that's true. Yeah. Yeah, this is another one of those moments where I'm like, I want more lore. I need more lore. More lore, please. Like that's usually how when a movie is giving you like a high premise on a setting you're unfamiliar with, you need a little bit more lore. And like I would have liked a moment where somebody's like in the prison and they're waiting for the monster men to come get them, and they're looking at and then like a dusty Mars cloud passes and there's like stars and they discuss something, something to give us a little bit more context as to why they're on Mars. Or like, they go into the basement of the prison and there's like some weird Mars artifacts and they're like, what the fuck are these? And like that woman is like, we found lots of the, like give us a little bit more Mars shit to reveal that they're not just on Mars to terraform it, but they're there to discover the ancient technology of Mars or something, whatever. Give me a reason.
Don't use the terraforming as a plot tool to explain why they can just breathe.
We're here on Mars to appease our matriarchal queens of Earth and all the solar system.
Most men are dead back on Earth. Back on. But they also mention, Jason Statham mentions a planet called Utopia or...
Utopa
or something
Europa?
Like Europa.
Europa.
He mentions a planet, and he's like at in the distant reaches of
well,
the
I thought that was
galaxy.
like a city or something.
I was gonna say Europa is a moon of Jupiter.
No. It was like Utopia or some fucking word like that. And I was like, okay, so clearly this is a situation where
humanity's left or
the whole galaxy, or possibly the whole I think he says on the edge of the universe, which means, do you know even with light speed travel, do you know how long it would take to fucking leave the galaxy?
Yeah, they must have some sort of Mars technology to help them out. It'd be great if this movie would give us any reason why they found Mars fuel. Yeah.
One minor thing that really stuck out to me, and I don't know why, is I'm surprised Statham wasn't looking around being like, am I the last British person alive? Like nobody else.
Why does he even have why does
I was born here. I was born on Mars, but for some reason I speak like this and no one else does.
It's that Star Wars thing where like there's space Bostonians and space British people.
But they're all Earthlings, but they're not, because I assume everybody in this movie was born on Mars, right? Like that's
they have to,
the implication is that
Mars,
they've lived here.
If they've terraformed Mars and there's the city is right behind your head, Steve. That city is bigger than any city on Earth. This shit has been fucking colonized for a century. Ben's
maybe
like,
more.
I'm out.
Yeah. It's like, fuck.
All right,
When you're
let the
talking
cat
about
in.
Space Western, I had an image of like maybe a jumbled up antenna or two intertwined into like a ball, kind of like an antenna tumbleweed.
Yeah.
Like
That would actually
the
be
barbed wire on
so
top.
funny. See, that's the kind of shit. They need Kalen in the fucking writer's room for this kind of shit, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
maybe he could
this whole
explain.
episode, we've all been pitching upgrades to this movie. Like,
yeah. An antenna tumbleweed is brilliant. That is such a good idea.
What are
Some
the
shitty human
explanations
technology just
for having swords?
Well, I assume that they just like ripped metal, like they ripped pieces of metal off of stuff and like
that
wrapped
sword was
duct
pretty
tape.
elaborate. Though.
only
Yeah,
cop-
there are weird
Oh
swords. that-
yeah, but it
It's 'cause
looked
it's the
like
guy-
it was
it's
like
'cause it's,
screwed in. Like it looked like they made it. Like it looked like a guy made it. It doesn't look like a
No,
tempered.
No,
blade.
there are like multiple swords, like in
that's because only
many
cops
scenes.
have guns.
There,
I'm just gonna say the ghosts of Mars don't like using guns. They like using their old fish blades that they've had since the beginning of Mars.
Oh yeah, it is kind of
guns
like
of Mars.
It is kind of like a piece of chitin on a. That's cool.
It
It's a-
well, a lot of the time it looks like a jagged piece of metal that they like sharpened and like made into a handle, and like sometimes they added extra bits of metal into it. But yeah, that one
Seems
she
like
picks
a
up.
lot of forethought.
do you think there's
Well,
a?
they're ghosts of Mars. They've been hanging out in that safe at the bottom
think-
of Mars
do you
for a
think that
billion
there's-
years or whatever.
Do you think that there's a movie Bible for this out there somewhere that has like way more shit in it that we don't get to see? Or do you think
No.
they just cobbled this movie together based?
Yeah,
Do you
this
think
is one of those ones where you're
think
like,
that they
I'd love to see a comic book
storyboarded it?
series, but like they probably never made one because nobody gave a shit.
Yeah,
No
can
one's
you
like, I need to
imagine?
know more about the ghosts of
Like,
Mars.
We need to build on this premise, and all the artists are like,
I don't know. They're
"Fuck,
so-
I got nothing."
They're like, when you say ghost, what do you mean? Like a spooky ghost, or like a
No, like an apparition.
yeah.
Sure. I think this would work better as a comic book series, but it's from before the movie was made, and
Or
it
like
is-
one of those
this is an
reboot
adaptation.
animated series.
This is an
'Cause
adaptation.
they could just use the.
This is an
same-
adaptation of a video game or comic book that never existed. That's kind of my final thought. And John
I like
Carpenter
it.
found it. He found it in an old briefcase. Just found a briefcase. It was there.
So my next question was going to be: do you think the matriarchal society was formulated on Earth and then moved to Mars, or do you think when they got to Mars, all of the colonists, when they got there, it was like they sent like the smartest of the smart people of the era, and when they got there, the women realized like we cannot allow what happened on Earth to happen again.
If I know
and they
Earth-
basically were like, "No, we're the men." Like just
If
like
I know
immediately
Earth,
were like dominating.
A team of scientists barely got there, and somehow, some way, were able to colonize this planet with people coming, new batches of humans. And remember what humans are like.
You're
Showing
like,
up
fuck.
every few years, and then it just sort of grew like a weird fucking Garden of Eden.
Yeah, but again, they
Um,
never really explain what that means, right? They call it a matriarchal society, but like you don't really know what that entails or what it means. It doesn't really.
If I
Well, I
learned
think-
anything about human nature, and from the Adventures of Mark Twain, and I know that women rule and men drool. So I think that's what happened. I think it was a weird.
Well, you know what they say: women are from Venus and men are from Mars.
Spirits of
Welcome
Venus.
home,
We've been there.
motherfuckers.
The sequel sums it all up.
But it's a it's a patriarchy. It's a fucking in universe. Sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
No, I think it was a really interesting idea that they didn't know how to deal with and just abandoned it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I assumed that it was like a thing where, you know, he put all these very strong female characters, and there's probably like a note from the studio being like, "Why are all these women so aggressive?" And then he's like, "Oh, it's a run by women. The whole planet is run by women." And they're like, "Oh,"
We're gonna
and
mention
just
it
like
for 4
staple it out at the
seconds,
beginning.
and
As soon as you kill
Yeah.
off Pam Grier, that story
Goes out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And men take over.
Yeah.
And
She
and
should
to
have
the
been around.
point-
She should have
to
been the
point-
main fucking character.
To the point that Michelle or Melissa, or where the fuck, Natasha Henstridge's character becomes completely submissive
She doesn't really become submissive.
She keeps thwarting his advances until she just doesn't anymore. Until she's like, "Oh yeah, I want to bang."
Oh, yeah. That actually runs into my next question. But so the entire conceit of the movie is that she's telling this tale to a council of like judges or whatever, or like a council of like the cartel representatives, which also is another question I have. What the fuck is the cartel? Yeah. But the question is, would she put those details in? Like it has nothing to do with anything on the mission. And she's also like, oh yeah, and then Jericho really got horned up in a supply cabinet, and I was also horny, so I started kissing him, but then we heard gunshots, so we left. It's like, would she tell that to them? And if not, why is it in the movie at all? Because that really kind of grinded things to a halt for me, where he's like, hey, there's a tiny room back here that has a door that leads to another door to the train tracks. You want to come look in there and take a look at looky with me? And then they go in there, and he's like, now give me a kissy. Right on the lips, maybe.
Do you ever tell a story with unnecessary details?
Well, yes, like this one. But also, when she was kissing him, the whole time was like, knee him in the nuts, knee him in the nuts, knee him in the nuts. Like I wanted her to like knee him in the nuts and have him fall over, but he didn't.
When she told him that maybe if you were the last man on Earth, but we're not on Earth, in my head I was like, so you're saying there's a chance.
And that really threw me off, and I couldn't take anything else seriously because he's like, there's only one way in and escape out the back. Like, so there's two ways in.
Yeah. That's what you're saying. I mean, technically, but really I just came in here to give you a smoochie.
Yeah.
Smoochie on the coochie.
This movie's ridiculous.
I have another question after your set of questions.
Okay, my last one is, what is the cartel? What the fuck is the cartel? Because, like, in your brain, you think cartel. Like, cartel literally just means, like, a group of, like, organizations. That's what a cartel is. But, like, why do they choose that name? Because in our brains now, a cartel is, like, villainous.
I think it was the connotation. Just to give an idea that, like, things on Earth are pretty fucking bad.
Right. So all of Mars is actually like secretly run by criminals.
Two of their biggest metropolitan areas have walls around them, and that's where they send the criminals slash expats slash atheists.
People who are addicted to plastic surgery. Get out of here, you fucking big-lipped freak! Those your boobs will float you there.
This movie.
My question is,
okay.
Was he trying to slyly give her the finger in the cell?
Yes.
When she was walking away and he was facing away from her?
It was only for us. It was fourth wall breaking. It was only for us.
Is that what it was? Okay.
And that was probably also like, they probably did like 4 takes of Ice Cube, and he probably did a bunch of different things, and then that was the one that everybody on like set laughed at the same time. Because like he probably did like a or like a and like he probably did a bunch of different ones, and that one is the one that everybody on set laughed at. So obviously the audience is gonna laugh at that too, right?
Yeah.
I would love to be in the theater when this movie came out, because I want to know where the laughs came, if they laughed at the actual jokes, if they laughed at the whole movie because it's ridiculous. Is it supposed to be ridiculous? When
people woke up.
A red mist goes through the theater, and some people wake up, some people don't.
Some people
the others start
face off.
Piercing their faces with needles. Where'd those needles come from, by the way?
The infected go and pay for a ticket again, just so the movie makes money.
Also, like, the poster that Kalen has, I've been staring at it this whole fucking time. The guy has piercings on his fucking knuckles.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Which was the style at the time. Yeah.
Oh my god. I just keep thinking about like putting on a sweater and like you pull it over your head and then like put your arms through the arm sleeve. And it just like rips out your piercings.
Those are good for when you put on a jacket.
God,
what?
I'm thinking about my skin,
because then your sleeve doesn't go all the way up your arm.
What?
I actually understand what you're saying, and that worries me.
Whisperer.
Hey, see this one? Ghost of Mars. Do any of you have anything else before we head into our final thoughts?
No.
I
can't.
I do like the
that.
line. Are we actually going to tell
yeah.
the cartel that the base was blown up by ghosts? That's where the movie should end.
Well, the movie does end with the leader person being like, "Okay, so
let's go kick some ass."
Sorry, and I thought the movie was going to end at that moment, but they had to put on that little maybe there's going to be a sequel, or maybe we have to have a little.
I know, but John Carpenter doesn't like sequels, so I don't know why he would do this tag.
I feel like someone else had their hand in this. Like this was not like a John Carpenter passion project.
And almost every John Carpenter movie ends in a way that you could have a sequel to it. So I don't know. For a man who hates sequels, he sure makes a lot of endings that are left open-ended.
Yeah, so he can produce and write and not have to direct.
And like also own slivers of rights to things and just like constantly for the rest of his life being like,
give me those
sending my kids and grandkids through college. Ding, 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 ding. I just gonna play NBA 2K23 and smoke weed.
Did he play NBA?
Oh yeah,
he loves NBA. He loves his favorite video.
He loves basketball.
He also plays Fortnite, Galen. So maybe one day we'll be playing against.
Maybe
John
you've already
Carpenter.
played him because you've played so much Fortnite.
And he plays on Xbox specifically, which I really like.
Ah, damn it. Let's see. So how shall I do this? Ben,
yeah,
would you please do us the honor and share with us your final thoughts?
This is a horrible film, but it is so fucking enjoyable. It's a lot of fun to watch. I think this is a great movie to end the Escape franchise with, or even just a Carpenter in general, because we've seen him do really well. We've seen him fail here and there. And this seems like it's the best of both worlds put together. I think this movie led us to have one of the best conversations about the man's career I've ever heard of. And it's because you've got those bits and pieces of what he does right and what he does wrong. I don't think the cast actually matters. It's the characters and the story. Steve has brought up many amazing points about why this movie succeeds when it probably shouldn't. I wanted to give this one shitty pair of camo pants out of 10.
Nice.
Wait, are they
what
all
color?
shitty? And then you just
they're all shitty orange. All shitty orange.
From all the shit that was shitting them.
But I'm gonna give it a 5.
Nice. Because
as much as I want to hate this movie, I can't. And it's only because of the conversations we had tonight. I've seen this movie numerous times, and every single time I hated it. But talking it out, it's a lot of fucking fun, guys.
Welcome to Hey Did You See This One, where I constantly change my fucking grade because of the conversation we have about the movie.
And no, that's amazing. That's what we should be doing.
Yeah.
Because like your interpretation of film isn't the only one. You're not going to get it right almost like 1% of the time, let alone expecting it to be 100% of the time. So hearing different people's perspectives, what they loved, what they didn't, what worked, what didn't, that's going to mold your opinion. And honestly, tomorrow I'm probably going to fucking watch this again. And I never thought I would ever see this movie ever again. So I blame all three of you for this. But at the same time, fucking thank you.
Blame Kalen specifically.
I had a lot of fun with this movie. I really enjoyed it.
So basically you're saying, I just saved your life. Take a number, or whatever the fuck that stupid line is she said.
Yeah. This is very surprising for me.
Wonderful. Thank you. I believe if I'm going to follow the order from before, Steven, I think you're next.
All right. I wrote mine down this time because, I don't know, it feels safe.
You finally took a break from fucking Kurt Russell?
Yeah, he wasn't in it, so I'm really easy to like riff on Kurt Russell, but I need to write it down when it comes to this bag of shit. All right.
All right.
I liked it too, though. I also liked it. This movie feels like a greatest hits of John Carpenter's previous best performing movies, cramming in tiny things most people love from those films into a disjunct narrative format that, while not confusing, felt unnecessary. It was. Flashbacks at times happen within the same scene, no doubt in an attempt to make a boring frame and a bad delivery seem visually more interesting, or to ramp the camp, in which case it's genius. The performances are lopsided and the characters interesting at times, but not interesting enough for you to care at all when they inevitably have their heads cut off by a barrage of flying table saw blades. The two main characters are meant to be an unlikely pair, which is too successful, to the point that it makes little sense to me. I really don't get why those two people were like had a camaraderie or catharsis throughout this entire movie. Mars is a fun setting, but like nearly every other movie set on the Red Planet, it ends up being pretty boring without Arnold Schwarzenegger telling a business mogul to give these people air. Overall, I think the movie is entertaining enough to turn your brain off and watch decapitations and weirdo space mist turn people into cannibal zombies possessed by fish ghosts, and a weather balloon that is actually admittedly one of the dopest things I've ever seen. But in a month of Carpenter movies on top of a catalog of movies that absolutely rip, Ghosts of Mars is at the bottom of the barrel for me. But that doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy it, because I did. And I actually enjoyed talking about it more than I did watching it. So I think that's something to be said about most of his movies. Even if you don't really like them while you're watching them, you can have an interesting discussion, at least. So I'm going to give this movie Peter Jason, the actor who's in almost every Carpenter movie, who we did not mention through this entire podcast.
I was waiting for Jace to mention that.
Is that the Meatloaf guy?
Yeah,
I did
on the radio.
Him
Where the hell are you, John Carpenter? Where the hell are you? You're supposed to be directing a good movie. God damn it! And then his head gets cut off. That's what I give this movie.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Jason, that brings us to you.
I forgot to. So I finished the movie and forgot to write a final thought. But I do.
Freestyle.
I'm not gonna freestyle. I'm gonna write a series of the notes I have, because I found a little chunk of notes that I think encapsulates how this movie sort of hits your brain. First note: this movie is awesome now that it's chaos. Guy gets his arm cut off and still shoots before ultimately dying. One of the women tells a story about blowing up a cave and finding a secret ancient tunnel. They find a door with writing. She touches it and it disintegrates, freeing some sort of red mist. She let out the ghosts. The ghouls are very Mad Max. They are just blowing shit up. Lol, Statham tries to fuck again. She's like, "K." Ghost goes into Natasha Henstridge.
How about a little sucky?
And I give this movie. Okay, so I gave it a 2. I legitimately gave it a 2.5 out of 5. So it's funny that you gave it a 5 out of 10. I give this movie a. I know nothing about Star Trek, but I do know enough about Star Trek to know that this is a episode where they go into the holomorph chamber. What's it called? The holodeck? The holomorph chamber.
The holomorph chamber.
And people remember it as a particularly bad episode.
But if this was an episode of Star Trek, it would be a great episode of Star Trek. Really, imagine Picard dealing with this shit.
A 2-episode fucking mini arc where they're in the holodeck and it's the ghosts of Mars. So that's my official.
You're telling me there are ghosts on Mars?
Woo! Thank you. Yes, flowers.
That's flowers. Petals for everyone.
Yeah, they're roses, and he's cutting his hands up on the stems, like. That's what the ghosts of Mars would do.
Also, final note.
They love self-mutilation.
I want to make a note about how.
Speaking of self-mutilation.
Hold on. I want to. Yes. I want to make a note about how it took us 3 tries, but we got the episode I wanted to have with Ben. So, thank you.
This episode?
Yeah.
This is a blast.
The first episode
really
was its own thing, and the second last week we didn't have a whole lot to say about Escape from LA, and Ben even messaged me after.
I see what you're saying.
I didn't have a whole lot to say about that movie, so like I feel like I was kind of lost in the shuffle, which you weren't.
Not this movie specifically. This conversation.
This conversation was the conversation I wanted to have all along.
Yeah,
so I'm glad
this is amazing.
I'm glad that we finally reached our proverbial rainbow.
Well, I'm glad we could all provide that for you, Jason.
Thank you. You're my personal entertainment.
It was a lot of work.
Earlier, when I said that I created this, I did not, in fact, create this particular podcast. Kaylin did. And
I didn't even.
Well, podcast.
I said, "Hey, do you want to hang out and talk about movies?"
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, did you see this one?"
Drunken phone call at 2 a.m.
But hey, go watch our old episode on Instagram, and that's basically what they are.
I'll keep mine short and sweet. This movie, it wasn't bad. I would have liked a few more badass quippy quotables, a few more sprinkled throughout. As you guys said, I also enjoyed having this conversation a little bit more than when I watched it, but then having the conversation, like you said, Ben, has made me kind of appreciate it more, as well as we all kind of threw out different, like, oh, what it meant if they did this or this or this, or, oh, maybe they meant to do this, or maybe they didn't mean to do it, but it came off like that. And it definitely heightens my feelings and thoughts on it for sure. I did feel the escape from vibes, whether or not it was remnants from an old script or what have you. What is this? I already mentioned that. So I wrote down that I wasn't sure how I felt about the retelling of events and it being kind of like broken up, as opposed to just being a linear story. But then, Steve, you made a point where, like, when someone tells a story, it is kind of like broken up. So that actually made me like change my mind about that part of it. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And then Uno was my fave. He was hilarious. When they get locked into the cell, they finally get Williams out, and then they go give him high fives and shit, and then they get locked in. I give this movie, so I'm giving this movie 3 different things. I give it a stylish body mutilation.
Like a Hellraiser, like a Xenobite. Rip your nipples off and make them into earrings.
And where'd the lady get the ones to put it through her face when she was?
That's what I was saying earlier. Where'd you get those needles from? What the fuck?
The like face on the face thing, like it was very Cenobite.
Yeah,
those ones. Yeah. I also give it drugs save you from demon spirits, and then the last thing I give it is always read the fine print. I also give it a watch, and it is MPAA 38248.
Okay. I have one last thing before we get out of here. We did another month where it was 4 movies from the same director. Have you guys formulated a list? Because
what was the other month?
Multiple months where we've not director, but like themes. If we do a theme month, we typically say what our we do it in order. I would say that honestly, Starman was number 1, and then I would say that like I liked Ghosts of Mars better than the Escape movies just because of how like ridiculous it is. But if I'm rating these movies as like best to worst, I think it goes Starman, Escape New York, Escape LA, and Ghosts of Mars. But I think that Escape LA and Ghosts of Mars are like tie for number 3 and there's no fourth kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think for me, John Carpenter's movies are sort of fluid in my mind
that
where
too, right?
I have a hard time pinning down which one's my favorite, because while I'm watching a John Carpenter movie, it is my favorite John Carpenter movie. Like while I'm watching it,
Yeah,
and it's like something takes over in my brain where I'm like, this is fucking dope, and like I always am having a good time. There's never a moment while I'm watching one of these movies that I'm like, this is absolute dog shit. I've seen, I think, all of his movies at this point, but there are a couple other ones that I would maybe like to go back and do another month just to catch up, and like the Children of the Damned, and
he did that.
Not Carrie, the car one, Christine. Yeah, and he's got a couple other ones that I would still like to see. The Fog, we talked about The Fog. Yeah,
I watched most of Christine at Christmas time at my dad's place. It was just on, and I just caught the end.
Like, even his worst movies, they're still compelling enough to make you want to watch them. Vampires, that movie is fucking...
I don't think I've ever seen that.
That's a trash bag of a movie, but you watch it and you're like, this is good while I'm watching it.
We covered that on the Bargain Bin. It's a fun episode. I highly recommend checking it out. Like,
nice.
If you're not going to watch the movie, just give it a listen. We cover most of it well.
So if I had to rank them, I think Starman would probably be number one for me as well. I have like a weird soft spot in my heart for that movie, even though it can be excruciatingly boring at points. Even the boring points,
it's a long one.
You're still kind of like invested, even in like the moments where you're like, all right, we get it. They're falling in love. Maybe he doesn't know what love is. She does. I know. But New York, and then LA as well, and then I think Ghost of Mars. But Ghost of Mars is kind of like fluctuating.
Yeah,
just
like
based
Ghost
on this conversation alone.
Number
like,
two,
it's like floating up and back in between the New Yorks. Yeah, it's hard. It's a very hard answer to give to that question.
Ben, you want to go next?
Well, of the three I've been a part of, I think it's quite easy. Number one, New York. 2, Ghost of Mars. 3, LA.
Ooh, Ghosts over LA.
If you had to slot Starman in there, would you? And where?
No, never.
Ben said on both of his episodes.
I ain't never seen it, and I never will. I don't give a shit about spaceman romance.
Episodes, specifically the first one, that he does not care for Starman.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's just
you don't like when he goes, "I put baby in you."
Oh yeah, that stands out in film history for me as my favorite line.
I only have one more orb.
It's not a terrible
movie.
movie.
I'm hungry.
I'm gonna give you a weird answer that incorporates. Was it last month or maybe the month before? They all take turns fighting for the light, and at one moment one of them's in the light, another moment one of the other one's in the light. So they're kind of all fighting for first, and they all.
No, he's talking specifically about the beast.
Does that suit your?
It's a more direct analogy to what I was saying. Yeah, but yes, you get it. Yeah. And which one comes out on top, Galen?
Okay. If I were to pick one to come out on top,
the beast.
It's gonna go somewhere.
I might. No. I might. I'm torn between NY and LA. I'm leaning a little more towards NY.
There you go.
Yeah, but you said in the chat that you liked Los Angeles better, so it's okay.
Yeah. And you also told us that you would say anything to make sure that Ben came back on the show.
Well, it worked.
He also said you would give me $1,000. So.
Yeah.
I want $1,000.
How do I get $1,000?
They're doing another tournament on Fortnite.
Okay.
230,000.
No, take us home. Can't do it.
I can take us home. We're all already home. All our viewers are probably at home watching, or maybe they're at work. It's some downtime, or maybe they're on the bus on the way to work, or maybe they're on the way to home. Maybe they're in the bathroom. But wherever you are, thank you for tuning in. And
questions.
For Jason, Steven, and our good friend Ben, I'm Kellen.
For Kaylin, for Steven, for Ben, I'm Jason.
For Jason, for Kaylin, and for Ben, thank you so much for being here. It meant a lot to all of us, and we appreciate all of your opinions. It was great. I am Steven.
I'm just going to continue. For Jason, for Steven, for Kaylin, I'm Ben. And
we just got to ask you one thing. Hey, did you see this one?
Hey, did you see this one? Oh!
He said the thing.
Play us out.
Hey, did you see this one? Ben.
Hey, see this one?
Ooh, that's a good one. Hey, see this one, motherfucker?
We should do the fog. The fog again.
2024.
Yeah, we gotta wait a whole year to do another 4 Carpenters.
Maybe
I'll sneak in a Carpenter
I'll
into
add
my month.
Yeah, if you can theme it in, you know.
Well, I missed the opportunity last year because I did the Stephen King adaptations, and he's done 1.
Make a joke or something.
Hey, have you ever seen a pussy do this?